Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council chambers. This is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting, working session for the city. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. Once again, we have a full agenda today, so we'll try to stay on topic and get done as effectively and efficiently as we can. And so we'll turn this part of our Committee of the Whole meeting over to our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Good morning. The first item on the agenda is Matt Reed for SCH Engineering Contract Renewal. Sorry, Matt, catch your breath. Catch your breath from running.
Green light, red light.
Green light. Good morning.
Good morning.
Here we are again. 2 years has gone by pretty quick, I'll tell you what. So, our city engineering contract does expire at the end of the year here, and so I guess I'm just here to talk to you guys about the possibility of us continuing to serve as your city engineer and extending that contract. So I provided a contract to Britt, who I believe has got it all in the packet, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it or see if you guys had any thoughts or want to ask me any questions.
Okay, thank you. No lights on right now. I think Matt, as representative, as you've been our representative from SCH as our city engineer for a while now, we've had renewable contracts with you. You've done yeoman's work for us. Professional services have been provided. We've done a lot of economic development moving forward. I think the efficiency and effectiveness in the work schedule and the fee schedule they have is reasonable and prudent, and you do outstanding work for us. So, I mean, I don't have any issues with the contract, and I would support moving forward with the renewal of that contract. Any questions, comments, or concerns from the City Council? First, Councilor Barabo, and then on to Councilor Freely.
Matt, your per hour rates, are they staying the same, or did you raise some of those?
No, I actually had to change those this time a little bit. I think I'd held them for 4 or 6 years prior, so I had to make a few adjustments. It wasn't on all of them, it was just on a few of them, and it wasn't substantial, but I did have to make a few adjustments to those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely.
I would echo your sentiments, Mayor, and I would make a motion to approve the contract.
Thank you. Councilor Freely moves to approve the contract with SCH for the next 2 years.
One says 3, but if you guys are more comfortable with 2, we can do that.
For a 3-year contract, it's supported by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? We do. Yeah, motion by Councilor Freely, supported by Councilor Paulson, and again, third by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it and look forward to keep working with you. Well, thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Alec Parrots. Did I say that right, Alex? State of Minnesota, MnDOT, regarding the update on the Highway 53 intersection concepts.
Morning, Alex. Good to see you once again.
It's green, so I know it's working. All right, thank you, everybody. Just kind of here to summarize a little bit about what we've been working on our Highway 53 intersection project here. A lot of it has to do with the new schools going in over by Midway area. So I'm just going to give a very quick recap of kind of where we're at, and then I believe everybody hopefully has gotten the packets here. Probably for the interest of this meeting, I'll just go through more or less the Morgan Road, because I know the other 2 intersections are out of the Virginia jurisdiction, at least as of right now. If there's any other questions, I can field those on those 2 intersections as well. But as far as the project kind of overview, obviously we're doing this because the new schools are going in just behind Slumberland there, just to the south of Midway. 2 of the intersections we've already had, the Hat Trick and the Progress Parkway have had safety issues already. So right now we're in the process of conducting what we call an intersection control evaluation or ICE report. With that, doing the traffic analysis to look at safety and capacity, and to really go through and if we can improve the safety and mobility for people going through the 53 corridor to safely accommodate any forecast with the new school going in. So as part of this, we've done extensive public engagement. We've already done, I think, 6 meetings between agencies, businesses, and the public. With that, we've also done a community survey and gotten about 300 plus responses on that. That's closed. I'm not going to get really into the details of that here. And there is some further information out on our website too, if you're interested at reading any of the survey information there as well. So where we're at right now is, like I said, trying to develop these intersection concepts here and come up with a preferred layout for each of the intersection concepts that we have here. Each of them are looking through and trying to go through really what we've done here is kind of develop some initial concepts, try to get some feedback from different ranges of the public, and based off that feedback and the traffic analysis is try to come up with a preferred analysis. So right now what we're hoping to do is trying to get some feedback from council on this to kind of go ahead with the preferred alternative based off of just feedback we're getting from everybody. So we're hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks is to get that preferred alternative hammered out and be able to present that to the public and the council, and therefore. We are continuing right now to get our traffic analysis together on that, and hopefully that's wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks as well. But we'll just kind of go into more or less the alternatives that we have here. I'm going to steal the copy that Britt had here because I a little lack of paper at home to print these. So we'll go through these. I believe we have 6 layouts that are potential concepts that we have for the Morgan Road. All of them kind of have a common theme here, at least for the City of Virginia's section on here. But the first one we have is a concept A in the packet here. We consider a geometric improvement, and we call this a green T, or a T intersection. So this would be pretty much what we've heard in the survey and from everybody else was that, the big concern is making that movement from, westbound Morgan Road to southbound 53 and trying to help facilitate that movement through there. So with this option here, it would allow traffic, if they're going southbound on 53, to be continuously moving, while if you're making a left, you can see in that red diagram here on the pack, it would be a raised median of some sorts on there to help divide traffic. So if you're coming in and going out, you'd be doing a merge. This is assuming that this west leg of the intersection would be closed on here. That's not a confirmed yes or no on here, but this is just showing a concept that we'd have on here. As far as this goes, this takes away quite a bit of our left angle and our conflict issues that we'd have out there for a safety side and still provide the access. One common theme you'll see on all these, which I'm sure the city is probably the most anxious or at least most commented on, is you can see that the Midway Drive realignment there going behind the old United Landscapes building. So we show that as going back through there, and that's really to get the proper space we need to get to the intersection. So that's about a 250-foot spacing from the intersection, and that's enough to be able to, based off of standards, to allow people to actually decide which lane they're going in and allow enough queuing length to go and provide for traffic to build up during time. So that's going to be common on pretty much all of these. And like I said, all these are just conceptual right now for what we're doing, but that's why you can see it's back that far on there.
Yes, I'm sorry, Councilor Freely.
Just for perspective, do we know yet, what the primary entrance and exit of the school buses will be? That'll give me a perspective. In terms of what we're doing.
Yep, thank you, Counselor. So we've met with the school multiple times, and they've been involved with a lot of our discussions on this. And from what we understand is the primary access in and out of the school is going to be the Progress Park entrance. That's for school buses and for general traffic. They are going to have White Cedar Drive, which comes out to Morgan Road. We don't know yet if it's going to be open or if they're going to moderate it with a gate in some form or fashion. We do know that they've tried to restrict, or how they've designed their school facilities is that there's 4 baseball fields in there, and there's a roadway that goes through the parking lot. So they've kind of, what they've tried to do is utilize that to not encourage people to go out that way through the parking lots and whatnot. And it sounds like they're probably putting some speed bumps and different stuff on that side. We don't know. Like I said, I think it's still a little open if they're going to keep that open full-time or what on there. Primary is going to be through the signalized right now that's there.
So on will be in progress.
Yep, that's our understanding, is that they're primarily focused that that's where it's going to be.
And I have one question. Well, I'm sorry. We'll go to Councilor Bearable first, and then I have a question. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, there's an issue right there in that White Cedar Drive. The school hasn't approached the city. We still own that road, even though it goes through where they're building their school, because we have infrastructure underneath that road. They need to approach us if they're going to put speed bumps or anything, and they have not approached the city that I'm aware of yet. Have they, Brett?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's an easement for our utilities in there, but I'll look back on the records.
Yeah, because they need to approach us if they want speed bumps in that road, because I figure people are going to find the shortest way, especially with cars, to get out of there from school, when it gets packed up with kids and stuff, in high school people, and that's going to be the shortest way if they want to go to Gilbert or wherever. They're going to find that way and go down Borgen Road and out the backside. So gating it, I don't think is an option as far as I'm concerned, because if we need to get in there, we've got to have a way to get in there with keys or whatever we're going to have. So we need to have a conversation with the school on that.
Yep. And like I said, I don't know what they're involved with right now with, the internal workings of that whole.
And I think that's a completely separate issue from what you're presenting today. That's something we have to move with the school and determine what's going on there. So, but the question I have with respect to the intersection changes, and depending upon what option is going to be selected with our input, hopefully, and from the public's input, is that it's my understanding, and if you can confirm this, that there's going to be a brand-new road punched in from Station 44 off of Old Highway 37 roadway, and I believe that St. Louis County is building that road, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, and that's shooting right up to the new elementary school and to the new high school, which helps divert some of the traffic coming down Highway 53 using this intersection. So it'll be a separate roadway cut all the way from Station 44 in there, so would alleviate some of the traffic, or alleged, at least theoretically, some of the traffic moving forward. Is
So
that
St. Louis
accurate?
County, St. Louis County is looking into it. They haven't dedicated any funds to doing that yet. Kind of with this whole process, kind of the linchpin is us deciding what's going to happen with the
I see.
intersections first. But the county has been looking at multiple layouts and different options on what to do there with that. And that is, I would say it's probably a stronger that might happen. But yeah, right now there's nothing set in stone. But they are looking at different layouts and whatnot, from my understanding through all of our conversations.
And I know this isn't a issue that's directly related to the Minnesota Department of Transportation project itself, but there's a residual effect with respect to that, number one. And then number two, we have the Borgen Road, we have had some conversation with the county at staff level, and conversation at the mayor's level with some of the engineer over there. I can't remember the gentleman's name, unfortunately, and through our 6th District Commissioner, Keith Nelson. And we talked about, you can see upon this concept that part of the Borgen Road, at least up to White Cedar Drive, that part of the Borgen Road would be part of this Department of Transportation Highway 53 intersection project. But it's beyond, it's the use of the facility and how they get to the school. And I know this isn't a Department of Transportation issue, but the Borgen Road is so deteriorated, and it's going to be used even more so now. If the road's cut in from the south, we don't have anything from the north, so it might alleviate some of the traffic in the southern coming from the south, but it won't alleviate traffic from the north, and this intersection will be affected mostly by the northern traffic then, if in fact the county is going to rebuild that road there. So the concern I have is the Borgen Road and how that accesses it, and I think it's a state aid road, is it not? But anyway, it's not part of your project itself, but it could have a residual effect on how traffic flows. So as you do your traffic studies and determine what concept you're going to have, that may be something for us to all consider.
Right, and just as one note on there, we were provided, so the school district did do a traffic forecast, and that we got, I think, in 2020, spring of 2020. So we've been taking that information as well as our traffic engineers have looked at the fact
Right.
and taking that into consideration, at least with the intersection side of it. So we do have,
Okay.
it's forecasted out towards the schools.
Thank you, Alex. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say that for me personally, I like the roundabouts. I think it alleviates a lot of the problem that we have with people speeding in that area. It's 55, and I don't know a day that I've gone and driven 55 down that road that I'm not passed like I'm standing still. So I think when we look at the overall bigger picture of slowing people down, and then if they have to slow down at the roundabout, then they are already slowed down for when they come to the 50 miles an hour over the bridge, especially in the wintertime. So I like the concept of slowing traffic down twice prior to coming in, as they come into the city limits and as they go around the corner into town. So that's my opinion when it comes to a safety perspective. I anticipate any crossovers, there's going to be accidents because we've got young drivers coming and going to school, no matter which way they're supposed to get there. As Councilor Baraboo said, they're going to find the quickest and easiest way to get there. And I think that's something that really should be considered is the quality of young drivers that are going to be coming in and out of that school facility. Coming in and out of Parkview in the morning is terrible, and there's no young drivers there. Theoretically, we're all adults, but the crisscrossing and how parents are in a hurry, you're always late in the morning, your kids are always running late. I see that same thing happening on the highway, and at 60, 65, 70 miles an hour, those accidents are going to be devastating, as opposed to the inconvenience of having to slow down and learn at roundabouts and having 20 or 30 mile an hour accidents. So for me, and as I look forward to my kids driving and needing to utilize that space, I think roundabouts are the right answer when it comes to long-term safety. Thank you.
Great comments.
And thank you, Councilor Johnson. One quick question, if I may, before we go to Councilor Freely. You know, the concern, another concern that I have is of consideration, and if you could speak to this briefly, is the reroute of part of Midway Drive. And I look at it, I don't know who owns that property there, if that's property that has to be acquired by the state of Minnesota, if in fact you've already acquired that property, number one. And number two, you have United Landscape there, which is an old gas station that used to be there. It shows in the roundabout that you were potentially going to close access from the United Landscape, and it looks like that's the only business that would be affected by it, that they would not be able to directly access Highway 53 because you have this scheduled close. So they'd have to go all the way around, come all the way back, and take that frontage road to get back to Borg Road, and then go down southbound on Highway 53, or northbound if they choose to do so, or they can go all the way down Midway Drive to the Cuyuna Drive, and that brings into play again. That's closed as well, and you can't make a left turn. It goes southbound anyway. So how do they go southbound? They got to come all the way around, come all the way back, come down and hit southbound Highway 53. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So my question would be, has your staff, Alex, have contact or discuss this in any way with the affected property owner, which is United Landscapes?
So right now, we haven't purchased any right-of-way for this project or anything. This is, we're at, like I said, at the stage right now is developing our concepts and trying to get a preferred concept where we can refine some of, where this goes. So, when we showed it on here, this is where the ideal, spot would be with queuing of traffic and everything else, right? Once we get into a little more detailed conversations and right-of-way needs to get purchased, we're gonna have those conversations with those owners on there. Be it as of access to and from there, us trying to get, how we're showing on the drawings here is that their access would actually just go down, Midway Drive, the 100 or 200 feet, and they'd have to come back around, to Morgan Road that way. And it's just trying to get access, or I wouldn't say access, but just get those conflict points away so it's not everybody merging, at the one spot on there, where, for a safety side of it, not to have that all meld in there.
Yeah, I understand the concept, but if I want to learn the landscapes, I'd want to know ahead of time if when the concept, before the concept is even selected, how that would affect them. So if that comes later on. Counselor Freely.
I apologize if I took you out of step from completing your presentation
Nope,
before
that
the
is
Q&A,
fine.
but I don't know that I agree with the concept of closing the old 53. I mean, there's developmental land there, and I think with this increased traffic, there's potential for development in that area for entrepreneurs to gain some business in some capacity that would serve the school and that traffic. So that's just a thought on my point, that I don't know that I'd be in favor of closing that off. I know it's not a widely used road at this point in time, but I remember as a youth, wasn't the A&W sitting there on the corner we used to visit? And so there is potentially developmental land or developable land there, so.
No, we appreciate that, side of it, and we did look, so if you look on all these diagrams, there's these white diagrams up here with the arrows and whatnot, and that's actually our traffic counts that we've done out there. And really, there's not, I think it's like 4 cars an hour that utilize that, so we're looking at it from a traffic management side of it and from a safety side of it, because if you really cut down, I could go into this whole thing of conflict points and whatnot, but from going from a 3-legged to or 4-legged to a 3-legged intersection really reduces the amount of conflict points and increases the safety out at an intersection. But like I said, this is just what we're showing here right now. Nothing's been decided one way or the other. I'm meeting with Evelyn here in about a week to have the same discussion, and like I said, we've already kind of had some primary discussions on there. So it's not that it's closed. We're just showing what could be on there. So like I said, really what it comes down to is once we pick one of these alternatives for each of the intersections, is we really start to refine the details of there. Instead of having our consultant refine details on 12 different options, we're trying to get the preferred analysis on there.
And so I'm sorry, well, please continue. Okay, so is this, your presentation is concepts, looking for input from us with respect to that, and you take care of all the information that's provided based upon your presentations and determine what you believe is the best concept moving forward, and you'll make that recommendation, and then that's when the hard discussions come.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So out of all of these concepts that you have, are you just going to be choosing one of these out of all of these?
Yep.
We actually had some discussion on our VEDA meeting because there is joint ownership with some of that Progress Park area between Evelyn and Virginia. And we did, I think, majority of people at that meeting, we really liked that roundabout. And I think it's concept B, roundabout, where it's behind Slumberland. And I have one question regarding that
You're saying for the Progress Parkway one?
for Progress Park, because that's going to
Yeah.
be the entrance and exit, the primary entrance exit for buses and students and delivery. Is that right?
Yep, from what we've been hearing from the school.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
That intersection block is in the Evelyn city limits, correct?
Yes, that is, I think the majority of it is, I think
Most
just
of it
north
is.
of,
And that's what
just
you're
north
saying,
of,
it's a joint thing, yeah.
yeah, just that whole Slumberland Road, I think, is a VEDA ownership. It's, it's not one of the cities.
One side is Virginia, the other side is Evelyn, just to clarify what you
There's
had
just
said.
a section, I think, that VEDA is in control of, and maybe John Sullivan can clarify. But to speak further on this, would there be a way to move this on the whole roundabout this way? So
Right.
that the Slumberland entrance exit, because if you go this way, then you're gonna have to cut an access road for access to Slumberland or here, JM Auto. So is that, I thought we had seen one where it was right with the Progress Park current drive.
Yep, so if you go to the previous sheet on there, that's our signal, that's there as well. So we did the two concepts at the Progress
Right.
Parkway, one with a signal and one with a roundabout. And really, they're interchangeable, but really, if you start looking at what we have for room there, just, visually, right, the roundabout with that free right, taking that away, there's a little more room to move it to the north than shifting it to the south. Either way, when you start looking at it, the southwest quadrant of that intersection is a rock ledge, and the area north of Slumberland's rock, so it's kind of, one to another on there, depending on which way the rock,
Okay,
is, and that's just part of.
So I think that being said, I mean, if you're looking for feedback, I would say that during our VEDA meeting, most people really liked that roundabout around that Slumberland area entering into Progress Parkway. There's also a company called United Glass that is currently operating in the 1404
Building back there.
building.
1404.
Is it 1404? And so they'll be coming in and out with, glass loaded on big, they need something easy right now, as Progress Park sits right now. Currently, it's a lot of potholes, so they're having some issues, unloading and delivering. So I think just kind of being mindful about what businesses are currently in those locations, and how that might affect their traffic patterns as well.
Yep, no, I appreciate that comment, and we've been having, as part of our kind of series of meetings here, we've been having meetings with the businesses itself as a stakeholder group, and both JM Auto and Slumberland have been at those meetings. I've talked with them outside of those meetings, and we're going to continue talking with them as we develop these concepts. And a lot of these, like you mentioned with the trucks and the school buses and everything else, once we pick a preferred alternative out of these, that's when we really get into the detail with the turning movements and the lengths and make sure everything works with all of that on there. And, additionally, even if you're looking at the signalized intersection, even just on this layout here, we've extended that left turn lane if you're heading south to make that east movement a little longer than it is now, just knowing that there's going to be buses and everything else that are going through there.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Paulson? Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
So how much is it going to cost the city when we build a roundabout or whatever we're going to do there? What does that look like for the city?
Well, and right now, that's kind of where we need to get our preferred alternative. So there is going to be some cost participation, depending on what layout we pick on here. And that's also where we look at it, is when we do the traffic analysis and everything else, we look at it as a cost-benefit ratio on there.
Okay.
Because, it's something that a roundabout, we'll just say could cost $3 to $4 million, whatever that number is, but somewhere in that vicinity from what we've done on other stuff on there. If we choose one of the other options that, it will still get us a very good benefit for, less the cost on there, we might, go that way. That's where that cost benefit looks at, because we can do more, more with the money on there. But that's where, once we get there, we'll have those continued discussions on what, that's going to look like.
I can tell you as a counselor that's been on this, the last time we did a cost share, it cost us $5 million. On the big bridge out there. I'm sure you're aware of that, and that's going to be something I know I'm going to be very, very careful about, because we as a city can't afford to borrow $5 million from ourselves again to fix things that should have been noted at the beginning. So as you're moving forward, I am speaking only for myself as a counselor, but if we're going to kind of go with that guaranteed manager at risk, that we're going to put a cap on it, and that's it. And if there's a mistake that the engineers make, that the state's employing, I feel that I'm going to be holding them accountable and not us forking over some more money because somebody made a mistake. So I just want you to be aware of that, and you can share that back up, at least from my perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. So Alex, I have just a couple of quick questions. Again, and with respect to shared costs, I know that comes higher up in the administrative portion of the Department of Transportation. And as Councilor Johnson alluded to, the fact that, there's a $5.4 million funding gap, that was a result of a mandate by the Department of Transportation. So historically, we're looking at, what cost-sharing issues could be involved. I can assure you that we are going to be considering using our legislative representative, our range delegation, and part of our lobbying group, in order to take a look at what the Department of Transportation costs with respect to this, and whether or not the cost sharing should be borne by the City of Virginia, or if it should be borne by the school, because the direct result of the change in these intersections as a result of the new school. So whatever the cost sharing is, or however we come to that as we move forward, the school has to be intricately involved in maybe doing some of that cost sharing as well, because if the school wasn't being built there, we wouldn't be changing the intersections at this point in time. So we'll be looking at that in the future, and that's something we'll move forward with. But right now, let's get back on track with the cost, with the concepts themselves. Any further questions or comments about the concepts that are being considered right now? And as Alex was saying, that he'll be moving to the other stakeholders and getting their input as well. So you'll continue to keep us updated and informed. And as you get closer and closer to the concept being selected, we'll have an opportunity to have some additional comments. Is that correct?
Yeah, and really, like I said, we're looking for the comments now, because we want to get it in the next 2 to 3 weeks, you know, to really just say, here's our concept on there, and to be able to do
Okay.
that. And then we know there's obviously going to be a lot more discussion once we pick that concept. I mean, because like I said, you look at Morgan Road, I think we have, 6 concepts there. So, really
Right.
trying to hammer that down. And I will say, kind of take a step back of kind of where we're sitting at least. So in this last year, we actually have, so we never had a project even in our STIP, our 4-year plan, or even our 10-year plan to do anything at these intersections. And our district management staff last year was able to at least appropriate $1 million for us to do something at the Progress Parkway. Right now, that's slated for a fiscal '25 in our terms on there. If that's going to stay there or not, for that or accelerate it, it kind of depends, but a lot of it depends on what we pick too, right? So, if we end up doing a roundabout there and it's $3 or $4 million, us even as a district don't have that right now, and we'd have to figure out how that would all go in. As far as the Borgen Road or even the Hat Trick right now, we don't have a project plan for that yet, but what we wanted to do is look at this as a whole, because we knew it was going to be all part of it. There is a potential that, maybe we're going to be doing the Borgen Road next time we do our mainline paving through there, and possibly do some work on there. So just to give everybody an idea of at least where we're at as an agency with this.
And I thank you for making that comment about the Borgen Road issue, because I think it's imperative that be at least part of the conversation moving forward. And once again, as you move forward, whatever the concept is going to be selected based on that, and what year you're going to be building that, still I think the school, has to be involved in some discussions in some respects to that, because when they receive that money from the state legislature to build this new school, and then of course the referendum on part of the school district within the West Virginia concept, but I'm just speaking about Virginia itself. I understand bundling all this into one project makes enough sense for not only economically but efficiently, and so but the school is gaining the benefit from this, and so. Like I said, my perspective is that these intersections would never be looked at unless this new school is being built. So I think that the school, if there's going to be a shared cost thing, we should all be together and discuss, how that's going to work and how that is. And so I concur with the rest of the council and with the statements that Councilor Johnson made about the fact that we don't know what the shared costs going to be, but they're going to be significant. So how we address that issue with respect to where the funding source is coming from, there's a lot of options that we're going to have to employ moving forward. We'll use the legislative option through a variety of resources, and then we'll use the shared information from our local residents and from the school. So all that thing comes later on down the road. But as far as the concepts go, I mean, whatever concept you pick, that's what you pick. We have to make our comments, which we've done. So does any counselor have any other information or any other comments here to make at this time with respect to the concepts that are being provided by Alex today? Councilor Freely.
So the key features would be, number one, safety, obviously, and then traffic flow, because you're going to have increased traffic flow. So I guess, is there any data that would suggest, like you mentioned conflict points, which of these options would be most significantly reducing those conflicts and increasing safety in the area? That would be interesting to know.
Okay, well, I can go through and just kind of give an example of what the conflict points are. So, and this is me putting my traffic engineer hat on, and me being a project manager, sometimes I do my best at traffic, at least relaying what the traffic engineers have. So as part of kind of what we've presented in all of our presentations here in the last month is, so a typical intersection, a four-legged intersection, say a stoplight or whatnot, would have 32 conflict points on there. And I can't even read my, my thing here, but out of that, there's crossing, there's merging, and there's diverging traffic patterns on there. The biggest one that we have is the crossing patterns, because that's really the 90-degree angles on there, and that's where you have most of your fatal and serious injury crashes on there. So our biggest thing when we look at stuff is to really reduce the fatal and serious on there. And, when you really look at it, if you go from a four-legged intersection just to a three-legged intersection on here, it goes from a total of 32 conflict points to 9 conflict points on there. And it brings in the crossing movements from 16 to 3 on there. So that's kind of why we've shown the closing that leg is definitely a safety improvement on the west there. Otherwise, if you look at, we'll just show like a roundabout, it brings the conflict points from 32 to 8 conflict points with, 0 crossing, movements in there. So either way, pretty much most of the options here, we're reducing, those conflict points. The only ones that we're not showing is, if it was going to be, say, a signalized intersection out there, and I think we've shown a signalized intersection, all these concepts, but we also, when it comes to a signalized intersection, we go through the warrant process, and for us to put a signal in at any location, it has to be warranted through our process on there. And just kind of preliminary, right now, we haven't had our final kind of traffic analysis presented to us from our consultant yet, but it looks like probably the Morgan Road isn't going to meet the warrants for a signal out there, which is probably expected by looking at what the numbers are, out there for volumes and whatnot. And signals, like I said, are more an operational thing, not a safety side of it, when we look at it at a safety side. So that's just kind of, where we're at, with that.
And my preference would be, just off the top of my head, would be the continuous flow of a roundabout, because those statistics indicate that it's similar in reducing that conflict point as closing that westbound entry.
And lastly, I think, I don't want to speak for Evelyn, but I think they would prefer that back road be open, and that concept for the roundabout accomplishes both things. So,
and we really do
Did you-
show, in a roundabout case, so we have, like I said, going through just the Morgan Road, the T intersection. So we have a T and then we call it continuous green T with the signal. And like I said, it looks like the warrant wouldn't, do that. So, that'd be one option. The signal itself, like I said, looks like it probably won't warrant that as well out there. And then, like I said, with the roundabout, we're showing that, with and without that leg over there on the west. And then we're also showing an RCI here, but that's also showing, with that west leg closed on there.
And I think this concept that you have for the roundabout is similar to what you have in Cloquet. There was a lot of angst about that, but that seems to be working very well. And looking at that concept and looking at this concept is pretty similar in nature, where all the access points of the roadway system that was there before still has access through the roundabout system. So that makes a lot of sense. Anything else before we move on to the next topic? Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I sat in on our last meeting at St. Louis County Building, and my preference for the safety aspect is the roundabout also, because you went through all of the different conflicts that could happen, and he addressed them correctly with the big amounts. So my favorite would be the roundabout. People get used to that, and the accidents that happen are very few. If they are, they're always at reduced speed. So that would be my preference.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. And one last question. Will there be a format for public comment?
Yep, we'll continue to do it. So we've, like I said, provided, we've had right now 2 agency meetings to kind of go over, because, this is kind of a big monster between 2 cities, a school district, the county, us. There's a VITA, there's a lot of there. So we've already done 2 agency meetings, 2 business stakeholder meetings, 2 public open houses that have been held at the county building plus hybrid on there. So what we're hoping to do is with this feedback in the next couple weeks is to go through and present our preferred alternative. And we're going to go through that same round of stuff. We'll start with the stakeholders, or start with the agencies, go to the stakeholders and then do a full-on public open house on there. And we also have on our website, our MnDOT website, all this information that's up there as well. The previous meetings, if you want to go and hear the comments and and kind of my full presentation here. I think it lasted, when we've been doing it, about an hour and a half or 2 hours. So I tried to hit the highlights. I know nobody probably has the time right now to go over that. But so it's all on there. Like I said, we're still planning to have, kind of that last round, but be able to present here. This is what our traffic analysis and based off the comments of what we'd, go ahead with our preferred analysis and start looking at the more detailed design of it. And it also does go through our geometric design unit down in the cities, and they start looking at those as well to kind of look at the turning movements to make sure, buses, trucks, and everything else, and we can get, pedestrians, ATVs, and everything else kind of safely across everywhere. So.
Thank you, Alex. One quick question for Councilor Paulson. Did Alex answer the questions with respect to your VITA participation?
Yeah, and I think this was VEDA, so did you?
Yes,
I don't
VEDA.
think you met, did
VEDA.
you meet with VEDA?
We haven't actually met with them. I know they've been, I think there's been different people that have been at certain meetings on there that were representing them.
Okay, and I think that got brought back to the rest of the board, so, or the authority. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, Alex, looks like no further comments or questions. Looking at these concepts, I think you had a general idea of what we're looking at moving forward, so I hope that helps you.
Yep.
Thanks so much for coming in and answering our questions and laying out these concepts for us.
All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. The next item on the agenda is review the updated lease agreement for fitness equipment for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
I see we had our Park and Rec Director in. He must be out on the phone. Chad, welcome back from vacation, moving forward, and good to see you once again. So hopefully we'll be able to address this issue and move forward. So, well, our Park and Rec Director is on the phone. I'm sorry. Okay, well, let's do that. Thank you, Britt. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I have had a look at all the documents that we've got here, the updated contracts, and it looks like the options are still here for the city. The one primary update that we have is the quote for the equipment from Precor has now been clarified to make sure that we note that it's being sold to the city and that the city would be the party in all the contracts. In speaking with our Park and Recs Director, it sounds like that's the way that we would get the best price, that the price advantage as the nonprofit that the Y would receive, the city is also receiving. And in addition to that, because we're a municipal body, we receive a little bit better interest rate on that lease agreement if the council is going the route of the lease agreement. So it looks like everything is in order at this point, and it's ready for the council's decision.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Brian, so on page 3 in our packet, there's a government obligation contract. It says obligor, City of Virginia, Minnesota, obligee is left blank. Is the city contracting with the YMCA, and the YMCA is contracting with Macro Lease?
The obligor obligee language is language that comes from Macro Lease's form agreements.
So is this Macro Lease's agreement with the city?
Correct.
And then the obligee is Precor
No, it would be Macro Lease.
or Macro
Yep.
Lease?
This is the agreement between the city and Macro Lease for them to provide funding. So basically, Macro Lease will cut the check to Precor. Precor will receive full payment and will finance through Macro Lease.
Okay, so that should be filled out under the obligee should be Macro Lease with all of the Macro Lease information.
Correct. And the one issue that, I shouldn't say issue, the one detail with Macro Lease, we can request that they fill that information in. Macro Lease, because they're a financing company, insists that they use their forms and they prepare them in a very specific manner. And so these forms, the forms that are in the packet, would not be the signature forms, but they are the forms that would be used.
So these forms came from from Macro Lease.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm comfortable moving forward as long as the contract is directly between the City of Virginia and Macro Lease, and that's spelled out specifically under obligor and obligee.
I think that's acceptable, and I think what we could do, as far as council action, is we could build that as a contingency into the motion, that it's, that the contracts could be approved contingent upon clarification in the language of the agreement that it's actually a macro lease contract with the city.
Okay, but why wasn't that put forward originally? Like, I guess I don't understand. If you look at what's in the packet, we've been going back and forth on this thing since July. And that's what I've been asking for since we came out, since the presentation from our Park and Rec director. That was all that was asked. What does the contract look like? And again, I mean, this is we got the updated on here, which is basically just a listing and then a warranty. But there's nothing in our packet or nothing that's changed. It just says between the City of Virginia and blank. So I think that needs to be filled out before we vote on it, and that's what I asked for last time. I'm not sure how much clearer I need to be on that point.
Well, are you comfortable, Counselor Paulson, with the concept of the contract, the way you're reading it right now?
I think the contract is pretty, I mean, it's stated, well, the lease agreement language isn't in there either with the payment. That was in our last packet. I did not see the actual lease payment and the interest rate within this contract, unless I'm missing it. And I'm, with all due respect, I just don't know why the city would be entering into any contracts without them being filled out. I mean, is that a best practice? I don't believe it is. So I guess if the 24, what was the payment? 242561. Is that in this contract here?
And, Mayor, if I may,
Yes, please.
in the conversations that I've had directly with the representatives of Macrolease, basically what they've told me is they, number one, require their form to be used, and number two, they're not going to provide us with the finalized form until we until we make application for credit with them. Even though we all know the credit is good, and even though we all know that it's going to go through, they follow these procedures. And so, what I'm sure will happen is I'm sure that they will provide to us the appropriate documentation. It will follow this form. It will fill in all those blanks. And as a council, what we could do is basically authorize the credit application and entering the contract contingent upon them meeting all of the conditions, filling in the contract, making sure that we have obligor and obligee specifically defined, making sure that we have the dollar amounts filled in, and once that credit application is made and those documents are provided, the council will have a final opportunity to vote it in or out. Basically, it would be we could authorize the application for credit, which would result in the final documents that would have all of those boxes filled in. And at that point, you could make a final decision on whether to enter the contract or not.
Okay, but this could have been initiated in July. Why wasn't, I mean, is our Park and Rec director here? Why wasn't this initiated originally, and now we're coming to the fact that, you know, these students are in the community is wanting to utilize this equipment, but the city didn't follow the proper process or procedure, and I'm really concerned why we didn't, if we knew that macro lease was the option which you pitched originally to the city council, why weren't the proper steps taken to fill this out, fill the credit application out, and get things moving? Now we're at the back of the 8 ball, basically, and I still don't have a contract in front of me with any information as to who with the city of Virginia is entering a contract with. I mean, if this is best practice, Mayor, maybe I shouldn't be here because I would never enter into this contract as a business owner, not knowing who I'm entering a contract with, and what the payment is and what the interest rate is. So I'm not going to vote on this until I get the information. Sorry.
Thank you. And before we go to Counselor Johnson, a quick clarification, if I may, Brian. So if we were to approve the application for the credit application, get all taken care of, could that be accomplished before our next council meeting next Tuesday?
I believe it could, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, I have a little different perspective on it. From my perspective, I knew right from the very beginning, maybe because I've had experience in that regard, doing the macro lease system, how that works through Precor, which I did before. So I understand that moving forward. I was under the assumption that this was going to continue to move, and I understand the gravitating through the different things. So I'm prepared to move forward with that contingency motion to the next council meeting to expedite this process further, to have the information that Councilor Paulson is requesting, have before us, so to make a vote on it at our next council meeting, because we really need to push this to the next council meeting. If the information can be provided, then we'll be ahead of the game a little bit more. So thank you, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. And I definitely understand Councilor Paulson's frustration. We didn't see this blank thing, I don't think, in July. We've been only dealing with the Precor, and I think that's where the problem's coming is we're actually dealing with two separate agreements here. We're dealing with, we want the stuff from Precor, and we like the stuff from Precor, and we know we need the stuff from Precor. But in order to get the stuff from Precor, we need the service agreement from Macro Lease. And up until right now, I was not clear about that. And I think that's where my frustration has been. So we needed to get the estimate so that Macro Lease knows what we want. Now we need to authorize staff to work with Macro Lease to complete a lease with all of the information in it, at which time we can then approve the lease, and then the lease means that we owe Macro Lease money because they're going to buy the Precor stuff. So, and I think that was not mapped out clear enough for me. I now understand. So I am at the point where I am I will make the motion to authorize staff to work with Macro Lease to provide a completed lease agreement for us so that we can authorize them to purchase the Precor equipment based on the bid, the quote that now expires December 21. So that's my motion, Pam, and I can repeat it if you'd like.
Okay, a motion by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support for discussion, further discussion. Just a clarification with Councilor Johnson's point. The macro lease is the financing portion of it. We're actually purchasing this stuff from Precor and financing that purchase through macro lease, right? So that's the clarification. So part of that motion. So all the information that we need can be accomplished hopefully through the motion in the second to have that available for us to vote on it formally at this next city council meeting. So we're just moving this from the committee of whole meeting on if it passes, on a motion in the second to move this to the city council meeting for a final vote contingent upon having the information requested by Councilor Paulson.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, please.
What I would suggest as part of that motion, maybe we explicitly authorize the staff to make the credit application, because that's what's going to result in that final contract.
Yes, I would amend my motion accordingly.
So to include that and the second as well. Okay, thanks. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? First, Councilor Beyondich, and then back to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And it is frustrating that it took this long. I believe we started talking about this back in June or July, asking for more information, and then to be put on the hot seat to make a decision When I read through this packet, when I got it, and then today we come in and see that it's changed, the sold to is now the city of Virginia. So as of this morning at 5 o'clock, when I read through this again, it's very frustrating that information is not provided to us in a timely manner, and then we are under pressure to approve things because the kids need it. When the information is asked for, it should be provided the way it's asked for. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to ask to have the motion read back, but before I do that, I want to make it clear that I've always understood exactly what this agreement is and who the players were, Precor, Macrolease, the City of Virginia, and the YMCA. So it was getting clarification on who the equipment it was being sold to, which finally is now clarified on this document right here with the amount of $129,982.61. So for me, that's clarified, which I'm fine with. And if we need to make application for credit, or we need to make a credit application, I'm also comfortable with that. When that comes forward to us, it better have all the information on there, including the payments, the interest, who the obligor or obligee is, and all of that key information. So I will move along with this, or I will agree with this, but in my past business experience, I've done several leases, and our Metro printer is not unlike what the City of Virginia does. Metro Printer is the company, Wells Fargo is the leasing agent through Metro Printing and copy machines. So I understand the entire process of what we're doing here. What I don't like is pretty much what Councilor Beyondich is stating, that when we've asked and requested information, we do not get the information and then are made to be put on a hot seat to make a snap decision when we don't have contracts that are completely filled out. And I will go along with it, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But next time when things come forward, they need to be properly executed so we can vote on them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Paulson. No, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
We still have another shot at this once we see this, and hopefully we'll have it in our packet before the council meeting so we can make sure all the I's and T's and I's, or whatever you want to call them, are dotted, so we can actually act on it in 2 weeks. I don't have a problem with what we're going to do right now, but we need to see that.
Yeah, and that was part of the motion moving forward to make sure that it's available for us at the next council meeting.
Yeah, and even if they get it to us before the next packet, that's fine, if you can get it to us before that, and during the week sometime before.
Sure, and I
I'm
think,
comfortable with that, just that portion of it, so we know what we're going to be voting on at the next council meeting. Thank you.
sure, thank you, Counselor Bearable. Yeah, that's the intent is to get that before us ahead of time so that we can discuss it, but if we move this forward, it'll be, we'll have all the information and we'll be able to move forward. So I'm very comfortable, I was comfortable, frankly, from the beginning. I understand how that works. So we're here now, we're moving forward with it, so let's get it done and hopefully we can move forward. Counselor Johnson?
Pam, will you please read the motion?
I may need some updates, but moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlieb to authorize staff to provide a complete lease agreement with Macrolease and allow staff to complete a credit application in order to purchase fitness equipment from Precor for approval at the next council meeting.
I'm fine with that, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Pam, for that. Thanks for gravitating through all that for us. The motion seems to be solid. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is review the quotes to purchase a forklift for use at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay, thank you. Brian, do you have any information about this forklift? or do we have the funds available to purchase it? It is in the budget, et cetera, et cetera. Just a quick, brief analysis, if you may, please. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. This is a purchase that we need to make for safety of staff in removing glass and doing other operations in the building. I believe with our discussions that we've had, I'll let Britt clarify this, that it would be a budgeted expense in the upcoming budget.
Very good, thank you. Britt? Okay, thank you. And in your package, you have the quote for the purchase of the forklift as requested by our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, for a purchase in the next budget of 2022 under his capital equipment. Is there any information? So first go to Councilor Paulson, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. Can you state which budget this is coming out of for next fiscal year? Is it Park and Rec, or is it city, because it says Ed Alto on there?
Yep, Ed Alto does all the specifications for equipment for purchase. It's part of the
Okay,
Public
so
Works
which
Director
department
position.
is this coming out of?
Iron Trail Motors Event Center, as listed on the agenda.
Okay, so this is coming out of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center budget for 2022?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Can this be used anywhere else in the city, or is it, I'm just thinking about if it can it be moved via truck to the park or to somewhere else if it's needed elsewhere? I know the primary focus is on safety of glass and the heavy stuff there, but.
Yes, it could be moved to other locations. We would definitely want to take care in moving it to other locations because part of the specifications for this forklift are the non-skid tires. So we really do not want to be driving it outdoors more than absolutely necessary because that would wear the tires out quicker. So it would be best for it to minimize its travels from one location to another.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking for council action.
I'll make a motion to purchase the forklift for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Councilor Freely makes a motion to approve the request for the purchase of the forklift for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? And it would be for what company under the motion? Hyundai? The low bid quote in the amount of? Okay. Is that correct? Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is we had a request from Paul Moe regarding valve replacement repair at wastewater treatment plant. We have a valve that is failing, and it's at the point that we can't get parts or anything for it. So we've been working with Kurt Kestinen and got a couple quotes to repair the valves. There's two quotes in your packet. The low quote is for $12,280 from Iron Range Plumbing and Heating.
It's amazing to me that these are already antiquated and that those valves aren't that old, so.
Used often. They're very, very used often.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm sure it gets a lot of wear and tear.
A lot of wear and
No
tear.
question about that, yeah. So, a lot of goes through there. So, okay, looking for council action here. Councilor Beyondich.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Beyondich and supported by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to review the MOU use agreement with Rock Ridge Public Schools for use of the Iron Trails Motors Event Center for the 2021 hockey season. And please note, this agreement also has other facilities listed in it.
Okay, thank you. And this is the 1 year, 21 to 22. Thank you very much. Brian? You here to answer any questions?
I'm
Please.
here to answer any questions that you may have regarding the proposal that is in your packet.
Okay, pretty straightforward, I think. As from my perspective, we will go to Counselor Paulson first, and then over to Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I had Pam email me the contract between the school and City of Virginia from 2018 to 2021. It was a 3-year contract. Last year, the school paid just for ice time $59,750. They paid an additional $18,000 for use of different city facilities, an additional $5,000 for the Tennis for All building, and an additional $1,750 for the back rink, which no longer exists. I am absolutely not comfortable with this contract and the pricing structure that we now have put forth before us. And I know, Brian, you gave me some kind of clarification, but if you add up what the school paid last year, it's about $86,000, and that's for all of the above, all the facilities listed. And if you look at what we're charging for ice time, at the highest ice time, it's $40,275. With the locker rooms and the coaches, it equals $53,215, and that's no less than 15 games. If they play all games at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, the ice time decreases, price decreases to $26,850. Add the locker rooms and add the coaches, and that's a total of $39,790 for the year. I cannot make sense of this. When we had our discussion as a council, we had said that we weren't going to raise the prices, but we weren't going to lower them, that they would stay the same and then escalate over at least, I think, a 3-year period when we had this conversation originally. So I'm actually ready to table this. I want other conversation to take place, but this contract, in my opinion, is costing the taxpayers dollars, and I don't agree with it at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to Counselor Beyondich and then over to Counselor Bearable. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I think I had the similar, I know we had conversation of keeping the price the same and raising it over a 3-year period, but not lowering it to bring it to that price. So I would actually have liked to have seen the last contract to see what exactly we did and how these numbers have arrived. So I think it was a good point to bring up that last contract. And this is more of an MOU instead of a contract. So I'm not sure, the numbers, for me, it is going to be a taxpayer burden, and that's what I'm opposed to. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Bearable.
Brian, I'm going to ask you this question straight out. There's girls listed in here also. They did not play or practice in old minors. They were with Hoyt Lakes and Evlith the last time around. They're going to be utilizing our ice time from these school districts.
That is correct.
Also, they're going to be practicing. Both rinks are going to be used for practices in a new facility. I agree with these two young ladies that we were told that we were going to leave the price the same. I don't have a problem even if the girls do, because that ends up being the same amount of time, even if they split times. Now, are they going to split the practice times for the high school boys, or are they going to practice at one facility? I don't believe they're going to want to haul their equipment back and forth all the time to split practice. I understand the game part, but I will not vote also for this lower reduction. The school district needs to pay their fair share if they're going to have both programs here. Even if the girls split time half and half, it's still the same amount of time as full-time last year for the boys. So
Understanding what the
that's
school
my-
has requested ice time-wise is that they will be using one rink for practices. They will be practicing for 3 hours per day, Monday through Friday, in addition to game times. Based off of last week's conversation with the school, it is my understanding that the girls will be practicing the majority of the time at the Hippodrome, and the boys will be practicing the majority of the time at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. They will both be having games. To me, logically, it makes sense that they will do some adjustments to their practice schedules, because before you have a game in an arena that is not where you normally practice, you will want to get some ice time there, because the quality of the ice, the speed of the ice will be different between the Hippodrome and the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So it just makes logical sense that before the boys have a game scheduled at the Hippodrome, that they would have some practices there. If the boys are practicing there, then obviously the girls would be practicing at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So currently the schedule has them practicing Monday through Friday from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock on the Toyota Arena, and all games are scheduled in the Toyota Arena. So the school would just be using the one sheet of ice, if that answers your question.
No, we're still maintaining a bigger sheet of ice, more cost. I don't think there's any less cost. I don't think we should be reducing it. It should be left level from last year, because there's gonna be enough ice time used that we have to maintain with our people and our employees.
One of the reasons that we negotiated these prices is the council had also said it was important to negotiate to try and get all of the games at the facility.
So they're all gonna be there now and not?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the council had said that it was important to try and get all of the games at the facility. So you'll see in the proposal, it was a tiered rate for them. Also did an open records request, finding out what the school district agreement with the city of Evelyn was for the Hippodrome. And we did not want to come in substantially higher than the Hippodrome's offer to the school and make it
What's the difference?
financially difficult for the school to.
What's the difference, Brian? We used to have two separate things between the school district and Evelyn used to pay so much money. Virginia used to pay so much money in the last year's contract and the contracts before. What's the difference? They're gonna have to pay the same amount of money. If they're gonna split time, Evelyn is gonna have to pay some money into this process also. So why should we be giving them the benefit of a price tag? I don't believe we should. School district has put this in their budget. We specifically said that we were not going to lower our price for this facility. We keep it the same for another year and look at it for the next 2 years. That's what we said. Way back, you presented that to us. And don't tell me you didn't, because I know you did. So I'm a little bit torqued at this contract also when I read it, read the whole thing. I do not like the money issue on it. They need to pay, I don't care if they just pay the $59,000 they paid last year for both girls and boys. I don't care about that. I don't think we should reduce it, period. Because you're gonna find out they're gonna be utilizing that ice more than you think. Once they get on it and they start skating on it, they're not gonna wanna go back to a smaller piece of ice. I know that from my son.
And that's why
From my son playing hockey all the time. They don't like those smaller rinks.
And that's why we are looking at the hourly rate rather than a lump sum rate.
I don't care if it's a lump sum rate, because we're gonna have to maintain it and keep it frozen and stuff and maintain it and do the Zamboni stuff and everything. Because we could make more money by not having them there and having tournaments there every single weekend on a Friday, Saturday, Sundays. So I disagree with this schedule on this. I want it to be the same as a year ago. And that can include the girls and the boys. I don't care. That's my philosophy on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor Baraboo. Counselor Johnson, then back over to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. I have a couple concerns. on page 41 of the packet, number 8, no practice shall ever be held nor play is allowed in the ice unless under the direction of specified school coaches. However, every year they have captains' practices, which no coaches are allowed at because of Minnesota League. How is that happening? And how are we going to prevent that?
That is a separate rental. For example, that just started this past week. We are renting the ice to the Blue Line Club, and the Blue Line Club is providing the, I guess you'd call them the ice chaperones.
I would like to see that put in here, that those captain practices are specifically called out for that reason. I just have a huge concern that, and I know it's common practice everywhere, but that if somebody gets hurt during a captain's practice and it's being rented, there's just clarity there. It's one of the things that's always been a personal frustration when it comes to the league and those stuff. Page 42 talks about 25 game passes provided to the city. Is this new? Have we done that before?
This is new, so that we are able to provide the game passes to our naming rights sponsors.
Can that be put in the contract that that's what they're for? My concern is that it looks like city officials are getting free games. So I'd like that specified, that's why it's in there.
Okay.
It mentions using the golf course for golf, but not for cross-country. Don't we close the golf course on the days there's cross-country meets?
I believe it was in there for cross-country also.
I didn't see, all the rest of them are bulleted, and I may have missed it, but I just want to make sure that we're clarifying that the cross-country.
Yes, it is on page 41 at the top.
Okay. Okay, that's why, because it wasn't bulleted point, so thank you, I appreciate that. And then I guess when it comes to cost, I'd like to see a minimum total spelled out what it's going to be, that this is the base we're charging, and then if anything goes over those hourly rates, I don't doubt the Parks and Rec's ability to track things. I do doubt the school's ability to accurately reflect their use of our facilities. So I guess I would be more comfortable as we move forward with some solid numbers, a budget page that says this is how much we're getting all in one spot, to summarize all of these bullet points broken out individually. So I'm guessing the school has a general idea of how many hours about they're going to use. So I'd like to have a guaranteed minimum that they're going to use. And then if it goes over that, then they pay extra. But I think it's too hard in my brain to budget our budget, the income, if we're just going to charge them $10 an hour for what they're going to use. I'd like to see a minimum, the golf team is going to use, or whatever, whichever the $10 an hour things, I'd like to see that broken out so that we have a solid bottom line number that says we can at least minimum budget for Parks and Rec income from the school is, $100,000. And then if they go over whatever that allotment is, they pay extra. And I do think that we need to have more discussion on this. How was this agreement come, did one of you provide it and the other one edited it, or did you sit down and have the discussion? I'm just curious to know what the process was.
Received the information of what we've charged in the past. As far as for ice time goes, what we've charged in the past, what Evelyn is charging, tried to come up with something that would be attractive for the school to make the decision to move all of their game time to our facility. For the other facilities, took the numbers of what we have charged in the past, broke it down into this rate, which you'll see for the golf course is per player. That way, if the golf program grows and they have more student athletes using the golf course, obviously our golf course has more wear and tear on it then, so we would be recouping more money. allows for the school to better budget. If they have 10 kids playing golf, they know they have to have this much. If they have 75 kids playing golf, they know the fee's going to be substantially more.
And then since you picked golf, this is the Rock Ridge School District, so
Correct.
does that mean all of the Rock Ridge students will be now golfing in Virginia, or is there need to be discussion about them bouncing back and forth? Those
That would be up for the school
Okay.
to decide.
All right.
We have an 18-hole golf course. Evelyn has a 9-hole golf course.
All right. And one more thing just came and went. That's it for now. Thank you, Brian.
Oh, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. So who was negotiating it? And has the school, I mean, why wasn't the city council involved in this negotiation process to begin with and having this discussion? Has the school already been contacted with this document?
Yes, the school has been
And
contacted
who's
with
been negotiating with the school on behalf of the city?
myself and the city administrator. We even had a meeting this past week that I believe counselors were invited to.
What meeting was that?
Oh, okay.
We had a discussion with Noel Schmidt this week regarding some rumors that we've been hearing that the city supposedly was saying, but we were not saying that. It was incorrect rumors that we wanted to clarify with him.
Okay, that still doesn't explain to me how city staff, we didn't authorize city staff to start negotiations with this contract. So I'm very curious as to why this body is not involved in these discussions. I don't believe there should be an hourly rate. When we added up, I did the math last night, if you add up the 4 tennis courts, $10 per indoor court, over 11 weeks of boys, 11 weeks of girls, on an average of whatever, I think I figured 15 hours, it's like $8,600. And then we're having to keep track of hours, and then we're having to keep track of number of students utilizing. I would never have put this type of a contract together. And I think the lump sum from the original, I think Pam just emailed the entire council the contract from 2018 to 2021, and it just said total was 18,000, and then it broke, and then also 5,000 for tennis for all and 1,750 for the back rink. So we were charging the school 18,000 plus 5,000 plus 1,750 to use all city facilities, and that's not monitoring student usage, monitoring hourly usage. That's allowing them to use at their discretion how much they need and how many students are going to be utilizing. I would rather not get into the trenches on that. And when I calculated, based on the 12, and I don't know if we've hired the 12 rec assistants, but based on the 12 rec assistants that were hired for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center at $17 an hour times 20 minimum or maximum they can work is 25 hours, that is over what you're going to be charging for ice time for even if all games were held at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So this fiscally does not make any bit of sense to me whatsoever. And when you say you took some documents from the Hippodrome and then we want to be competitive, that's not what this council directed anyone to do. This council had to make a motion to table until we can come to the table as a group and have a discussion about what we'd like to see coming forward. So I will make a motion to table.
If I may, and a point of order, Counselor Paulson, in fairness to the other counselors who would like to comment on this, by tabling this motion, there is no comment or discussion.
I would let conversation happen, but it will be my intent to table this.
Could you hold that? Would you be willing
In
to?
advance, yes,
Hold
ma'am.
that until we have further discussion? Thank you. Counselor Freely.
Yeah, I guess I would contend that we have competent professional employees that work for the city that do have to initiate conversations that are not necessarily authorized by us as a council to determine what's in the best interest of the city. And I think that to present to us to then determine whether or not we vote yes or no with regard to the recommendation that's brought forth to us. Just a conversation that we're having right now, and I was concerned about significantly with regard to the current facility that we have available. We're not welcoming anybody to it right now. We're not welcoming anybody to it right now. And the intent and purpose that Brian put forth to us, as well as Britt, with the contract that's been provided to us today, was to welcome the Rock Ridge School District to our facility and utilize it as extensively as possible for the upcoming school year. We have to keep in mind that there is a competing facility only a few miles down the road that is waiting open-armed and willing to provide any and all ice time to anybody that needs it above and beyond what we're capable of providing to them. So I'm very concerned about this conversation right now. And I think we need to stay in our lanes. I've said that before. There are recommendations that come to the council that we then act upon as a council. We are not the ones that formulate that recommendation. We're the ones that act upon that recommendation. That work is done for us. Now, when it comes to us, we have the ability to discuss it, which is what we're doing right now, but then we have to vote on it. And we can vote no if we disapprove of that recommendation. And I think that's a point that we should be at. This recommendation was not done lightly. It was brought to us to be created so that it would welcome the school district to our brand-new $38 million facility. And already, there's been kinks in that by the school district already agreeing to scheduling half of their varsity games at a competing facility down the road. So we're already losing business as it is from that regard. This was intended to put together the opportunity for them to be welcomed to our facility full-time for the following school year. And I think these figures that are provided to us, although different than what we've had in the past, are provided to welcome that school district to be utilizing our facility, hopefully exclusively, come October of '22. So I'm not in favor at all to move forward with tabling this discussion, because all we're doing is putting up a hand and a stop sign and being unwelcoming of who we're trying to invite to utilize our facility and will be a primary user of that facility. The longer we hold this off and the longer we stumble through this, the less inclined they're going to be to do business with us. And I think that that would be very detrimental to the city. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Before, if I may, before we go to Councilor Beyondich, I must say I concur with Councilor Freely's perspective on these things. And looking at, this is a one-year contract. It's not a three-year contract. So it's an adjustment period, because the school had indicated that they were not going to merge their hockey programs till the following year. They've decided to merge their hockey programs earlier. So by giving an adjustment for 1 year to allow for that, I think makes sense. And we can always make an adjustment to the fee schedule and things on the following year, because they're going to have to make a decision whether they're going to play their games in Virginia or not next year, the year after. At that particular time, we've made the offer. We made the effort to welcome them there. And if the school is going to make that decision, they're going to have to, adjustments going to have to be made to the fee schedule moving forward. So I think that our staff has done the own work on that. I don't necessarily think that we need to be involved in the details of it. However, the fees associated with that is something we're discussing here today. So, I mean, I have a lot of other things I'd like to say, but really to peel away the onion, I kind of concur with the perspective that Councilor Freely has, because this is just a one-year contract moving forward, and we can discuss at a council our strategies moving forward for the years to follow. So, thank you, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. So way back when the school was being built, I think the city did reach out and extend how we felt about the school, and we practically gave away property for them. So that, to say that we're not working with the school, I feel that's not true. The other thing is, when we had our original discussion, the original discussion was the prices will go up in increments. They will stay the same for the first year. We're not even staying the same. Are we making enough money to pay for all the people who work there and all the extra time that it will take? Are we accountable to our taxpayers? So for me, it's not about we're not welcoming. We have taken a step back from where we started with the original discussion of keeping the prices the same and stepping up each year. So if we're going to do this for the school, are we also going to do that for the event center? Are we going to back down? This is a brand-new facility, and yes, we do want everybody to be there, but we've had discussions on this early on the pricing, and we're already stepping back. So are they going to help, are other communities going to help pay for the employees and the hours that are put in there? Or does that fall on us? So those are, I mean, we each have a different perspective of how we're coming at this, but our original conversation was to keep it the same, stepping up each year. If we do that for hockey, if we pull back, well, then we better pull back on the event center. And maybe those costs are too high for our citizens to be able to rent that facility. So I'm torn on this, but to me, we didn't even start where we said we were going to start, and that's the frustrating part.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. So, Counselor, we'll go to Counselor Baraboo and then back to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, I have an issue with this yet too. We need to put in there and put the school district on the bubble here on this. Their school board is split because there's split people on that council, on that school board from Evelyn and from Virginia right now. They're not a school board as a whole. Even this election coming up for the seat that's missing is just for Virginia. They will, in another year, when they have the big election, it'll be an at-large position on the school board. But they made the decision to split the season with the players. We didn't make that decision. We should not back off on our original proposal when it was presented that we would leave our pricing the same. You know, it doesn't make sense to me to cut it in half. School district can afford it. They must have put it in their budget for a larger amount because they had to work on their budget for this year that's already started earlier than we work on our budget. And they got some extra dollars from the state of Minnesota, so I don't care about this. Otherwise, we need to figure out a way to cut our costs down on that ice because the costs are not cheap with a bigger sheet, two bigger sheets of ice. And they can utilize both sheets if they need to for practices, etc. But they need to bite the bullet a little bit on this too and help the city out on this. And if they want to compete, you know, that's part of private life and part of how businesses run. They all want to go to the Hippodrome, fine. But once they play on the sheets of ice of ours, kids aren't going to want to continue to play on a smaller sheet of ice. I can guarantee you that. They're going to play on our ice. Knowing that from having a big-time hockey player through high school, every time he went to a bigger sheet of ice, he loved it because you had the ability to pass and move. So that's my philosophy. I don't think we should back off on what we talked about months ago, about leaving the price the same, not reducing it. I don't like that. I don't care. We can fill the space. We can fill that space. I'll guarantee you, you get a few extra 16-team tournaments here with youth and stuff coming up from all over the place. It will help all our economy better than the loss if we go to this other stuff, even if we didn't play anybody on that ice, except tournaments, which can happen if we promote it right. So if the high school wants to go play all in Evelyn, fine. If they want to play all in Virginia, fine. But that is not going to happen for another year. then the school board has to be elected on an at-large basis for everybody that's on there from Evans or Virginia, not singly from the different communities. This is the last time that's going to happen. That's my thought on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Counselor Johnson and back over to Counselor Paulson, I just want to say that, you know, the item on the agenda is to review the use of recreation. That's what we're doing. And so I believe that we have to vote it up or down or direct staff moving forward. I don't think, with all due respect, that tabling is going to do
Wasn't
any
going to
good.
table, if I could be allowed to speak.
Okay, I'll just reserve my comments for later on. Counselor Paulson, then we'll go over to Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just listening to the dialogue, and instead of tabling, I think what we need to do is go back to the drawing board with this contract. And if we had, this body had discussed that we would keep it all the same as last year, I would make a motion to direct city staff to put in the actual the rent for the ice, $59,750, the total of $18,000 for facilities, total of $5,000 for tennis for all, and forego the fee for a back rink of $1,750. And come back to the council when the contract is changed and adding or amending any language that Councilor Johnson wanted to add or amend. And also stating that I think that was it, but I don't want to see the hourly rate. If we had talked about having it the same, it would be my motion that it would be the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So are you making a motion this time?
Made the motion, yes, I did.
Okay, all right. So let's, there's a lot in there. So let's see. Pam, do you have kind of a gist of what that
I
motion
can
is?
simplify it based on the 2018 to 2021 three-year
The
contract.
final year.
The final year would be the
Rates.
base price
Okay.
going forward, correct?
Okay, thank you. All right, is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support for discussion. Let's go to Counselor Johnson for discussion, then back to Counselor Freelieb, and then I would like to make a comment as well. Counselor Johnson.
Have we done all of these buildings in one contract before, or it's always been one? Okay, I couldn't remember. I think, I don't know how to say this without offending anybody, so I'm just going to say it. I think that we lose sight that the staff do have a job and that this is the starting point and not the finishing point. And I think too many times when we come here, we feel like this is, or I feel, I won't speak for anybody, I feel that when I look at this, I go, okay, what needs to change? I don't feel like this is rock solid. And I think that we lose the ability to have that discussion because occasionally I feel pressure that we need to decide on what's presented to us. And I think that's what we're doing very well today is saying, okay, this came to us, but it's not what a majority, it sounds like a majority of us want. I can't imagine the time that staff put into this, and I appreciate, Ryan, your work, and Britt, and Brian, and Pam. John, you didn't have anything to do with this, I'm guessing, today, so. But we've created a $38 million monster that is affecting everybody in this community and spreading out. And everybody has wants, and everybody, and I think, for me, I'm trying to take a step back and look at this without emotion because it's a beautiful building. I love being in it. I love the staff that work there, the camaraderie in that building, especially with the new park assistants, park and rec assistants, is phenomenal. But it happened in our design meeting 2 weeks ago. Now that we have this beautiful facility, everybody wants more. It needs to be better. It needs this, it needs this. And in all reality, the building should not be open yet. I mean, that's really, we pushed everybody really hard so we could get it open. And now that's out of the way. Now we need to start running the building and the Parks and Rec department like it needs to be run. And I appreciate we have an opportunity to look at this contract and start over. I too happen to be not sympathetic to the school district when it comes to giving them a break at this time. We did sell them a very large piece of property for very minimal. We have bent over backwards in a lot of things with them. And I think that when we use the word partnership, partnerships will go in both direction. And I would like to see us having those discussions more as partners and not as, well, we own the building and you're going to do it our way, or, well, we have the money and we have the kids, so we're not going to do it your. And I don't know if that's happening, but that's what I feel. That's what I'm getting. There's all this angst about this brand-new building and how to best use it. And the discussions, when we have them here, are supposed to be discussions. We're supposed to be bringing all of this stuff up here. That's our job. And bringing up those concerns here is exactly what we need to be doing. And to have it today, it makes our meetings long, but that's why we're here. We're elected officials. We all took on the responsibility to have these discussions. And maybe this is the kind of thing where we need to be looking at, how do we have just a meeting where we have discussions and nothing else happens? Like, there's no pressure to vote or to move. We have brainstorming ideas with the staff, and we actually have some discussion instead of what feels like, well, either you're right or I'm right, or you're wrong or I'm wrong. And that's not what we want. We all have, I believe, we all have the best best outlook for our taxpayers and our citizens and our children and everybody at heart. So I like the idea of bringing it back with what we had talked about when we started this, about keeping things at the same level and looking how we move forward with that. So with that, I'm going to be supporting the motion to bring forward a revised contract, and maybe when we do that, it comes back just as a revised contract for more discussion with no action anticipated or needed at that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Before we go over to Councilor Freely, just to bring it back to the issue, which is review the MOU. We've reviewed the MOU. We haven't approved the MOU. Now, there's a motion on the floor to add a specific amount to the agreement. And, I'm going to reluctantly support it for this reason. Because I think if it goes back to staff, I think staff should have the option to renegotiate either at that level of 2018 or above, depending upon what they think is appropriate and needed in their discussions with the school. So I think the motion is limiting us to that particular dollar amount. But if everybody's comfortable with that, I'm comfortable moving forward with it. But I think it doesn't give any movement for negotiations as our staff discusses it with the school further. So that's a concern that I have about that particular part of the motion, but the motion in general, I think, it makes sense. And so once again, I'm going to say before we go to Councilor Freely, I have the trust and faith in our staff to do what they've done. This is what they've done before. This is what Park and Rec has done in the past. So now we're going to change the process a little bit. That's fine. That's what we're here to do. But the motion on the floor, or the issue at hand, is reviewing the agreement, which we reviewed. There's a motion on the floor to move forward with a finite dollar amount, no room for up or down. So that's where the motion is on the floor right now. We're going to get ready to vote for it quickly, or not quickly, but soon, after the discussion is done. So the further discussion, Councilor Freely.
Yeah, just real quick. It was my understanding that the school district actually intended to split the varsity games between the two facilities in Evelyn and Virginia for 3 years. And so kudos should go to Brian and Britt for whatever conversations they had to get the school district to acquiesce to only 1 year, because having 3 years of that occur would significantly impact the revenue that we would generate at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So that's key in terms of why we're having this presented to us at this point in time. They did get the school district to acknowledge that we are the facility that is state of the art, which is complementary to the state-of-the-art facilities they said they would be providing to the students and programs in the Rock Ridge School District upon this $180+ million referendum. And so I congratulate you for being able to do that, because the 3 years would have been potentially ruinous for us as we try to get this off the ground with this new facility that we have to afford to the students. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Freely. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Could I just have Pam read back the motion, and just for clarification, that basically the motion is to move the dollar figures that were in the contract from 2021 forward into this one-year contract, and then adding or amending any language that Councilor Johnson wanted to add or amend with what's already in here, which I think is part of that was a copy paste from the original contract. So I just want to clarify that that encompasses all facilities, meaning the ball field, the golf course, the tennis. I mean, the tennis is spelled out, I think, separated in there. But it's listed under facilities.
So could you read back the motion to make sure that's accurate?
Moved by Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson, to approve a new contract with ISD number 2909 and to mirror the rental fees from the 2020 to 2021 contract with ISD number 706 for use of all city facilities, and to amend the request for line items, and I believe they were 8, 16. 8 and 16, was that the only two?
Okay, thank you. Is that acceptable? Is that clear? Is the motion clear for you?
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear for
so-
everyone to make sure.
All right, it has been moved and supported. Now, is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, you know, if we go back to the new schedule, instead of leaving it the same, we're opening a can of worms to the figure skating group also. Nobody's thought about that. Brian, did you reduce theirs, or did you leave theirs the same as their last contract for ice time?
Brian?
We do not have a contract with figure skating. Figure skating is a program that we run.
Okay, but did you leave the price the same or reduce it from last year?
Trying to keep it relatively the same.
Okay, so they get preferential treatment then, because it's a city program versus a non-city program, which you're going to get blowback on this from them also.
No, nobody was getting preferential treatment. We were trying to recruit
That's
the high
my point, Brian. We don't give preferential treatment to the school district, okay? That's my point. If we're not going to give it to the figure skating's program also, which is our program, why should we give it to the school district?
Well, if I may clarify, Councilor Bearable, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, Britt, that we approved that city program last time.
Yeah, I understand,
Right?
I understand.
We voted
that.
for it.
I'm
So-
just trying to make a
And they
point,
accepted it, right?
because we have skaters from all over not just Virginia, it's from all over the region that come to that figure skating program,
Right, but we're
like
looking,
the hockey players do.
yeah, but we're looking at as opposed to a city program, as opposed to a lease agreement with an outside entity.
That's still preferential treatment because you're basically trying to cover your ice costs, okay? We're not going to cover our ice costs with the high school program and the B team. B team's going to skate on this ice too. And I don't know whether they got separate time where they skate with. They used to have separate time when back a number of years, and I think they still do. Or am I wrong on that, Brian? Because there's a B team for the high school hockey program to bring up members for the varsity the next year and the next year after that.
They have a varsity and a JV team.
Well, that's what I'm
The
talking about.
junior gold team is run through a youth hockey program.
I didn't know that. I thought it was still part of the high school program. Okay, that's something that it shouldn't be run through the youth hockey. It should, because you got your other programs below that are run by youth hockey, all the way up to the JV. JV is part of the high school. I still have a problem with not leaving what we talked about at the same price as 2021. Thank you.
Yeah, so the motion is related to the MOU agreement with Rockridge Public Schools. That's what the motion's for. That's what the issue on the table is for this specific issue itself. The outside issues come later on, right? So we can figure that out and maybe address that a little further at some later time, but this is related to the Rockridge School. So this MOU, there's a motion on the floor at a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry, further discussion? Did you have some further discussion? Okay, I'm sorry, all right. We should, further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Mayor, I'd request a 10-minute break.
Yes, that's what we're going to be doing right now. Let's take 10 minutes, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Let's get back to the meeting. What we'd like to do is move item 14 up on the agenda. Under other items of concern is to approve the resolution allowing application for CDBG funds for the City of Virginia Lift Station Improvement Project. And Matt Reed's been patiently waiting, so we want to expedite him through this process. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate getting bumped up. I'll just give a brief synopsis here, and then John can fill in the gaps. But John's put together, he worked with us, we put together some cost estimates, and then he put together an application to CDBG to do some improvements to the lift stations. You've got quite a number of them, and I'll simplify it, your telecommunications, let's just call it that, systems are pretty outdated. The communications that your people use to be able to tell if there's an alarm on a lift station or if they're having trouble with the lift station or something's not working right. So it's actually been out of date for quite a few years, and we did a study back in, I think it was 2012 was the original one, and really nothing has been done since then with it. And so we've been talking, Britt and I and John, and trying to get that back on track. So John prepared an application to the CDBG to start working on that. We've been working with your sewer guys, sewer operators, to be able to make sure we're getting the systems that they would like to have. So with that, John, if you had anything to add to that, I guess we're just looking for a resolution to put in the application, correct?
John?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. The pre-application was already due, so that was submitted. It was due October 15th. So how we handled that was, in the pre-application, was we took the recommendations from SEH and the study, the updated 2012 study. They did a new one in September. It's in your packet, and we applied for, in the preliminary, $375,000, and we split it 125 city, 125 IRRR, and 125 CDBG funding. We knew that we needed upgrades to all 17 lift stations. Back when we were doing the street, I think Councilor Baraboo would remember when we were talking at the Street and Alley Committee that we had this lift station work upcoming, and it was City Administrator Britt's idea that we combine city funds with CDBG funds in this year. So Matt had his crew do the study and upgrade it, and I really like the map. It shows how evenly spread out the 17 lift stations are, throughout the community. And the final application for this is due fairly soon. It's due December 31st. So we've got more work to do, assuming you're okay with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. So, looking for council action to approve the resolution allowing for this application for the CBDG FIST funds for the City of Virginia Lift Station Improvement Project. It's divided into three areas: IRRB, ourselves, and CBDG. Councilor Baraboo.
I'm just going to make a motion that we approve going along with this application to CDBG. And the reason being, when you have problems with a lift station, we've had some over the years that I've been on this council, and they become really devastating to areas of the community if you can't get them up and running right away, if you have to pull big pumps and the other things that they go to heck, even with backups. It can become a problem with backup sewage to homes and everything else. So I agree 100% that we need to do this. Because they're old.
Yeah, and this is a technological upgrade as well, so it's been moved by Councilor Baraboo. Is there support?
Support for a question?
Support by Councilor Johnson for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson.
Can you just give a brief summary of exactly what a lift station is for folks like me who kind of know but aren't sure?
Sure. The lift station is the stuff that pumps your sewage from the low points to the high points. Most of your pipes in town are gravity, but you get to a point where you get too deep, so you can't do gravity anymore. You'd be 100 feet deep by the time you get down to the treatment plant. So at specific locations throughout town, there's pump stations, lift stations that push the water back up to a reasonable level, and then it can gravity flow again. So there's 17 of them throughout the course of the city that are currently in operation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so just to kind of elaborate, it's part of the collection system of sanitary sewage in town to make it flow to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for your patience.
you.
Britt?
The next item on the agenda, I believe, is item number 7, approve the scope of work from Kimley Horn for the potential development for housing concept planning. This is John Sullivan.
John?
Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Mayor. What we did was, Britt and I had a meeting with superintendent of the school, Noel Schmidt, and his consultant through Kimley Horn, and they have a number of properties, I call them remnant parcels, if you will, that are the main focus of the study area is along South 6th Avenue, and it's in between South 2nd Street and 4th Street South roughly. Most of the properties that the school has currently, they consist of parking lot and some vacant spaces. They will no longer need those spaces. So we talked to the school to see if the city could potentially do planning work there and repurpose these parcels and make them something else. If you look at the city zoning ordinance and the comp plan, any infill development adjacent to, which this will be a new elementary school, that would be fairly good location for new housing, which we have a housing study that's indicated we have a need for that. So I guess what I'm advocating with this is that we hire Kimley Horn and we outline some concept development plans for these 5 separate lots. And in the next packet, I apologize, I'm gonna show you a map and I'm gonna give you the PID numbers on each one of the parcels. I should have done that before, but they're, just for the record, there's, the 5 parcels are the ones mostly all west of South 6th Avenue, and they include the one north of 3rd Street, and then 2 south of 3rd Street, 1 down by Rogerville Road, and then the one over on the east side of 6th Avenue, where that parking lot is south of 4th Street South. So that's where the 5 lots are. But when we have the meeting next with the council, I'll give you a map that highlights each one of those parcels.
Thank you, John. And the ownership of these parcels are with Independent School District number 2909 now, or is it the school just owns these parcels?
The school district owns all of these parcels, and they're willing to let us work with their planning consultant, who's also developing the new elementary school there, for us to, acquire those and develop new housing there. And I'm anticipating, well, I am bringing this to the Planning Commission on November 1st for further, massaging and review and recommendations. And I'm going to take the housing planning part of that through the Planning Commission process and then make a recommendation to the city council.
Thank you. And just one more question, if I may. This approving the scope of work for community, is this a shared cost with the school, or is the city borne the cost of this?
We are proposing to bear the cost of this because the school has indicated that if we can come to an agreement, that we would get the property. But the school district needs to make that decision.
Right. So if we do the scope of work, and is the intent at this point in time, which is an unwritten, uncontractual intent, to convey that property over to us?
That is correct.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. The total expense I'm looking at is $9,400. Is that the final? That's about $2,000 a parcel. And I think that looking forward and looking at the comprehensive plan, this is the right way to go, to have some idea of what we could do with those parcels. Otherwise, there's going to be a bench of empty lots around a brand new school, and And we, as we've said many, many, many times, we're landlocked and are struggling with that. So I will move for that we authorize city staff to expend the $9,400 for this study.
Thank you. It will moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Freely for discussion, further discussion. First Counselor Freely and then to Counselor Bearable. Counselor Freely.
There may, thank you, Mayor, there may be some interest in adjacent landowners to have some access to expand their own properties or to, like if they have a one-stall garage, might want to be able to build a two-stall garage. So I just want to make sure that we at least have some consideration for, because in the past when there's been properties that have been abandoned, we've typically gone to the adjacent landowner to see if they have any interest in that before we move forward with whatever plans we had. So just a heads up on that, that there may be somebody in the neighborhood that's planning on building something additionally, and they'd like to secure some of that property from the school district as well. But I don't know if they've initiated that conversation yet or not, so.
Okay, thank you. And that brings a point from Counselor Freely. So are these buildable lots and the size associated with the lots are conducive to building a new home? John?
Mayor, some of them are smaller and some of them are larger. So what we're attempting to create from this process and through this contract is to develop the future for what type of housing units we could fit on different lots. And I think dovetailing back to what Councilor Friedlieb was discussing, this will tie in well to our discussion with Rogerville Road and some of that abandoned railroad property. Because I'm going to work with Brian when we get the concepts here, and we could potentially integrate that land into this as well. And then we would really have more land other than just what the school is talking about. So in effect, combining all these different lots, at least in concept and theory, and looking at what's possible I think would really help us quite a bit.
Thank you. Is Mill 40 one of those parcels? Thank you. Counselor, okay, very good, thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can those be reparceled at all? Do we know? So they would be buildable? So when Kimberly Horn does the scope, if there are adjacent properties and, they don't equal 50 square feet to build, so that they can be reparceled?
What Kimberly Horn will do will tell us what spots we should look at putting housing and what we should offer to adjacent landowners, because it makes more sense to see if they want to extend their lot or.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Them are just really odd-shaped lots, and we'd hate for the school to start selling them off willy-nilly to people if we have a plan that we can come with and get our hands on them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it has been moved and supported to approve the expenditure for Kimberly Horn, take on the scope of work for the redevelopment and work with the school with respect to the housing concepts. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And going back to Councilor Friedlieb's point, before we do this study, should it be offered to the adjacent landowners, the property owners?
We don't own it yet.
Okay, so it would be something the school would possibly do.
It would be something that we would potentially ask to get the land from them, and then we would be doing the platting and the conveying of those parcels.
Okay, so we're not leaving out the adjacent owners of properties?
No, and there's going to be some spots where it makes more sense. When you see the map that John will get to you, some of them are very narrow and small, and it makes more sense just to add it on to existing property to get it back on the tax rolls with the existing property. So when Kimberly Horn does this, they'll give us that, this would fit a perfect house of this size, and this would fit a garage maybe for accessory structure for that house, or they'll come back with all those recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And like you said, John, vetted through planning and zoning and through the resources with respect to that. So thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Britt?
Thank you. Item number 8 is a request from our police department regarding signage in the pass-through parks on Chestnut Street.
Yes, thank you. And I've had some significant discussion with the Senior Citizens Center and others about, trying to dissuade some of the activities that are going down there, whether signage does that or not, but I think it's prudent for us to have some kind of signage down there as requested by not only that for that Pastoral Park, but the other one on Chestnut Street. So I open that up for discussion and council action. Councilor Johnson.
Based on the note from the chief, would additional lighting next to the next to the senior center also be prudent? I know we just put in some lighting at the new pass-through, but that senior park seems to be very dark, and it would discourage sleeping if we had some better lighting in there. So that would be another suggestion, because putting up signs is just going to give us the authority to say move, or we're going to make you move again. So I see that being a little bit more of a deterrent, and maybe an extra speaker in there, because nobody can sleep when the music's on. Because I was actually talking with John and noticed one of our local folks was in the old Norman's doorway Monday morning sleeping. So, you know, it's not illegal to be homeless, but we can, and that's a further discussion in the future to how we support those folks. But I guess I would like to see if we could get some estimates on putting some better lighting, especially in that senior park, to make it less desirable to sleep as well.
Thank you. And there was a request early on by the Senior Center, former Public Works Director who has since retired. It was going to look into the fact of two things. One is lighting down there, and the other is ensuring that there's some kind of a system in which, like a camera system, like a whatever. And he was going to look at that. That was on his list. That never really did get to the point of where they were looking at that. So that suggestion, Councilor Johnson, I think we should continue to resurrect that and move that forward. So thank you for that. So it has been moved and supported, has it not? It's not. So I'm still looking for council action related to the approval of the signage in the pass-through park as requested by the police department.
I'll move that we put up appropriate signage and investigate better lighting in both parks.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, city staff was directed to meet with AFSCME regarding a wage negotiation for the administrative assistant 2 in the police department. We met yesterday at noon, and after discussion, it was forwarded to me, and I placed on your desk that AFSCME is thinking this should be in line with the information technology specialist 2, so that the wage would be the same, and it would be $29.97 per hour, thus allowing a step process. So the existing administrative assistant in the police department is this administrative assistant 1, and then the new AFSCME position, moving from the confidential position to AFSCME, would be a step 2 at a $29.97.
Okay, thank you. I looked at through the description. It's basically the same information. The only thing we've taken out is the fact that it's no longer a confidential position based on perspective of how you perceive what that duty and responsibility is with respect to confidentiality. So the $29.97 an hour. What was the previous wage for the confidential administrative assistant that is currently being filled?
$29.29,
So it's a 20 cents an hour increase.
about 60 cents,
How much?
68 cents or something like that.
68 cents an hour increase.
Well,
That's fine. No.
Not necessarily, no, it's not actually, because according to the contract that we have with the confidential employee, she has longevity.
Yes,
So
very
the
good.
base wage was $29.29. She does have longevity.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you very
So
much.
her actual wage that she actually makes
Yep.
is more than what the AFSCME position would be.
Right, thank you very much. Yep, so that sunsets. So
Sunsets.
you have before you the position, thank you. You'll have before you the position description, and this is the wage negotiation with AFSCME. This is what's recommended by staff to approve. You're asking for us to approve the wage.
Yes, because we'd like to get this posted as soon as possible. Her last day is December 9th.
I'll move to approve.
And then we'll have to do the posting as well. So, but before we do that, if I may, this job description, was that approved earlier? It was?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So thank you. Councilor Paulson, did you wish to make a motion, did you say?
I move to approve.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve. Is there support? Support by Counselor Johnson. And so this is to approve this, and was part of that motion be to post this out? Or is that a second motion, separate motion? Post this position? Okay, so a motion to approve the wage and for the job description for administrative assistant two for the police department. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Looking for a motion to post. Moved by Counselor Johnson, is there support?
All support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion?
No question.
Yes, Counselor Paulson.
Is it going internally first then
Has to
within
go
our?
internally for 7 days, so to be posted today
It'll
internally.
be posted today internally, and then after the 7 days, if no one applies for that, it will be posted externally automatically?
Correct.
Okay, thank
Correct.
you.
If that's the council's desire, that's why I took the motion, but that's normally the process.
Okay, thank you.
It moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.
Yes, thank you. Item 10 is we have had numerous requests regarding a monthly open skating pass for the new facility. And with the ice being put in the main arena very soon here, it's time to start discussing that open skating fee.
Brian, you're back up to the plate.
I'm back again. And I'm not really sure if this is something that I need to be bringing before the council, but rather be safe than sorry to bring it before you. And if you tell me it's an operation thing and it's my job to figure out this, then so be it. But we're here to discuss it anyway. We've always done public skating in the past, which traditionally has been a Sunday morning thing. We do have a desire in the community from some retirees, from some individuals that work shift work, and from some families that homeschool to do more skating during the daytime, which is when our ice typically sits empty, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. So my idea during this time is to create a member skating time. Whereas they would pay a monthly fee. My suggestion would be $10 a month for an individual, $25 a month for a family, and they are given a membership card, which is one of our fob systems. At the time of getting that membership, we take care of all of the waivers that they have to sign off, that they understand that ice skating comes with certain risks, they agree not to hold us liable. Then, per our schedule, we will schedule the member skating time and communicate to them that their card is valid during any of our member skating time, which would also be our traditional Sunday morning public skating times, that they would be able to come in, lace up their skates, and get on the ice. So that is my proposal. Looking for council feedback or for you to tell me that I don't need to be coming to you with this information.
Thank you. First, Counselor Freelieb, and then over to Counselor Baraboo. Counselor Freelieb.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Brian, for coming and talking about this, because I look forward to being able to have access to the ice and get some exercise, especially as winter closes in on us and it gets dark really fast and we need to get sweaty now and then. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Freelieb. Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, Brian, when you send out the information to anybody that may want to purchase one of these monthly ones, in the winter months when you have tournaments, they'll be probably Sunday mornings too, so they'll be exempt. You have to send a letter saying that for public skating, because they play on Sundays. If you have big tournaments. They play on
Correct,
Sunday
yes.
mornings.
Yeah. So members, those who would purchase these memberships would have to be paying attention to the ice schedule as far as when member skating and public skating is scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Will that be posted at the miners then?
It'll be posted at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, all of our schedules are posted in-house. The video boards that we have the week schedule on them. The video board that is above the locker room has the locker room schedule so that if you are a Bantam and you arrive to practice today, you can just look up at that board and go, okay, I go to locker room 117 or 115.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Counselor Johnson and over to Counselor Paulson, this is an example, I think, from my perspective, of what building is built for. Part of it is our community. It's for our community. You make it affordable for our community to use it. They're paying the taxes on it. They're paying the 1% sales tax. They support this always. So this is one area, just like the walking track, for a community to have an affordable way in which they have some activity in a new facility that they help build. So those are my comments. Councilor Johnson.
The only request I would have is that you look forward at the school schedule and like this weekend's MEA, making sure that there is that free time during the week, like looking forward, so that if we have a family pass and I know there's no school on Thursday, now I've just filled 3 hours of time because we can go skating. So I'd ask that we purposefully block off time when school or during the Christmas break to keep those hours open. I think that'll help build our fan base as well. And I do like the $10.25. I think that's a great idea. One of my frustrations was always bringing, when I had my respite kids on a Sunday morning, not knowing anything and showing up to go skating and they're being canceled because of that. That was a huge frustration. I know we're working around that with some things too. So thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you. Could you just review the fee schedule?
My suggestion was $10 for an individual or $25 for a family.
And then will this be able to be purchased through the Iron Trail Motors Event Center website?
Through Rec Desk.
Through RecDex?
Yes.
And so will that link be on
You'd have that link on there, yes.
Because I know the link is on, I think, the
city's
city's webpage. but
yes.
Is it on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center?
We would need to add that to there, which is easy to do.
Yep. And I think this is excellent, so thank you for bringing this forward, Brian.
Brian, one other question.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable? It has not been moved? Okay, Councilor Bearable, go ahead.
Just a link to Julianne's thing. If a person doesn't have a computer system for linking, is there another alternative? for
They
them?
would be able to register there on site.
Okay, good.
Councilor Freelieb, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freelieb.
Just a quick suggestion, just to reduce liability, I would suggest or recommend or encourage helmet use on the ice for all ages.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Would we have the ability to have an auto renew so we don't have to go in and buy every month?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. I would move the proposal by our Parks and Rec Director.
Or
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 11 is a discussion I need to have with the council. In all my years of working here, I don't think this has ever come up. We have a city travel request regarding an employee to attend an out-of-country training. The training itself and the means to get there are covered under a grant that the employee has received on his own behalf, not through the city, but on his own behalf. But he would like to attend this training, and I believe it's in Scotland, while he is technically working. He wants to be on the clock for the city while he's there. And I don't recall, Sherry mentioned that she thought maybe somebody went to Canada at one time, but we don't remember ever in the last 20 years anybody asking to travel out of the country. So I need some clarification from the council, as our travel policy does not address this. Looking
Okay,
for some advice.
I'll start.
Thank you.
And move on. I think that if no matter what employee it is, if it's at the individual's expense, both travel-wise, whether it's covered under a grant that he has personally in this particular case, and the fact that all expenses are paid and the time is personal time being used for that, I don't have any problem. We shouldn't even be, I don't think we have the authority to say you can travel out of the country unless he's presenting or attending training as a representative of the city.
He is asking to be as a travel request from the city, so he's asking to be identified as working while he is there.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Counselor Paulson first, then over to Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. So what I would ask is, what is our current policy state? And I'm not finding that in,
Does not have anything about out-of-country travel.
not out of the country, just in general, when an employee requests travel, are they on the clock? What is our policy currently?
Yes, they are on the clock.
So it shouldn't make a difference whether it's in country or out of country.
However, out-of-country has a little bit of different liability factors. What if the plane gets hijacked? What if there's a terrorist threat? What if there's COVID and they get locked down there?
That could happen
Anybody,
regardless
anywhere.
of
Tennessee,
where.
it could happen anywhere.
I guess I don't understand the difference between out of country or in country, to be honest with you. So I would be comfortable moving forward with the travel request.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go to Counselor Johnson, when an employee goes out of the country, and I'll give you an example. I was afforded the opportunity to go to Israel years ago, and as part of a contingency that went there, and made a presentation on some security issues. And so I traveled on my own time. Expenses were paid by the company that was asking me to fly to speak, and I was not authorized to represent the city. But I could say that I was an employee of the Metropolitan Airports Commission, say, for example. So so are you representing the city, or are you just indicating that this is who you're employed by? But you're making a presentation not on behalf of the city, but on behalf of your expertise in the area of whatever that is. So I think that's the distinction. So I don't see the difference between whether you're doing it within the United States or nationwide, as long as the liability falls with that employee who's traveling.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. If they're under that's workers' comp would cover something, if something happened to the employee while they're out there, because they are working. So it would be a workers' comp claim.
Okay, very good, thank you. But the expense, as far as the payment of the expense and the travel expenses and everything, there's no cost to the city in that regard. Is that correct?
He asked for meals reimbursement as part of this.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something else, Brian? Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
I want to be careful about setting a precedence about allowing overseas travel as a city employee. My concerns is that this is several days of 4 days of travel outside of the country, and is he presenting for the city? He's not presenting for the city. He's presenting for the scholarship that he is. So I guess where I'm at is, if he's going on a scholarship or a grant and we are paying him, is there a double dip going on for reimbursement? Just something about allowing a city employee to go overseas that's not a directive of this council, I'm not comfortable with. My assumption is that this trip is going to happen whether or not we approve it. It's just whether or not we're paying the person to travel. If another employee asked for a similar thing that wasn't salaried, how do we compensate that employee if there's a non-salaried person that goes overseas? Have we looked into other government entities and overseas travel, like the state of Minnesota or some larger city? Right now, I don't want to approve this because this isn't a city-based something that's going to benefit the city, other than some connections with other probably worldwide people, which would be super cool, and I wouldn't mind going. But when it comes to the practicality of the city of Virginia sending an employee to Scotland not to represent us, to not talk about city stuff, I don't think we should be doing that and I think we need to look at our travel policy in the future to clarify that, so we don't have to have this discussion again.
Thank you. I think there's a simple solution to this issue. The fact is that you know, we got a lot of people want to talk about this now, so let's take it one at a time if we may, please. We're discussing this because he submitted a travel request. Had he not submitted a travel request, we wouldn't be discussing this. He'd be going out there regardless. So he's asking for meal reimbursement, correct?
And to be on city time while he is traveling.
Right. So he could do this on his own if he wants,
He certainly could.
right? He could do
Any
that.
employee certainly could attend any conference on their own using their vacation comp.
And it
time
doesn't
or-
make a difference if you're salaried or if you're hourly, no matter what it is,
Right.
right? So, okay, thank you. First, before we go to the other counselors, we'll go to Pam. Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. Britt, maybe you want to shed some light on our training yesterday regarding like presenting and then asking for wages while presenting. That was part of the
Well, you know what, if I may,
training.
we have Chief Lewis here. So if you don't mind, let's have him come and explain. That'd be fine? Or would you like to go first, Counselor Paulson?
I guess I want to just point out that everything I'm reading in the 4-day event is training. So this shouldn't be treated any differently than any other travel request, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Baraboo?
Yeah, and it is a benefit to the city because he's going to get 18 credits for this tortoise paramedic license, and we pay for licensure travel for all our other ones that require our police officers or other people. We pay for that when they travel, and we pay more money than $171 for food. So I don't see a problem because his travel expenses are all being paid. That's another issue. Why should we discriminate if he's going to get 18 credits to upkeeping his paramedic license and his further training in that aspect? So I don't have a problem with this one at all. As long as we make sure we just cover our tail ends on this.
So it seems like the issue, and we'll bring Chief Lewis up to give us a little further explanation, I think answer some questions. So you have a request to present. So the question is, I think our question is that, is he representing the city? And is this part of a travel request that he needs approval by the city because there's a request for reimbursement for meals and for Chief Lewis to be on the clock, so to speak? I think those are the two issues that we want clarified, and I think we've got some clarification from that. I would defer to our city attorney later on with respect to that. But Chief Lewis, would you want to come up and give us a little information about this travel request, what it entails, the purpose of you submitting the travel request, and how that's going to work, so give us a better understanding.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for considering the request. This is the World Extreme Medicine Conference. This is held every year in Edinburgh, Scotland. The specific request is to be able to attend for the 18 hours of continuing education. In addition to that, I am presenting there. So this is the first time I presented at the World Extreme Medicine Conference, and it's kind of a big deal. There's going to be hundreds of people there, and my topic is on EMS leadership lessons from the Arctic Circle to South Sudan, and I talk about some of the experiences that I've had in some of my previous jobs. I'm not there in an official capacity. I'm not representing the city of Virginia. I'm there as a participant, and I'm there as a presenter. So to me, whether it's in a neighboring state or a neighboring country, all of the expenses are paid with the Bush Foundation, with the exception of the meals. If the meals is an issue, I got that too. You can take that out. It's, yeah, I'll take any questions.
Very good, thank you.
And I think that, Chief, just to clarify, I think the question we had as HR and as the city administrator is, you are physically working, so workers' comp is covering you to travel to Scotland is the question we had. And while you're in Scotland traveling around doing your thing, you are under workers' comp rules. So that was just the question that HR had was, does the council understand that if you are injured or hurt while you are traveling abroad, that our workers' comp is going to have to pay for that while you're there?
The same as it is if I go in the US.
Correct.
As outlined by Councilor Paulson in her previous comments. thank
Last
you.
time I checked, Scotland wasn't a hotbed of terrorist activity, so
No.
I think it'll probably be good.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson.
I would move to approve the travel request of Chief Alan Lewis.
Would that include the meals reimbursement?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely? Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call, please.
Huffy,
Aye.
Baraboo, Friedlieb,
Aye.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich, Johnson,
No.
Baranzelli.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Next item on the agenda is approve the resolution for city to act as a fiscal agent for a Brownfield Community Development Grant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We've done these quite a few times.
Yes.
We weren't successful our last 3 applications, so we're going to try again. And the Brownsfield grant can be used for site cleanup. We have many, many contaminated sites in the city of Virginia, so there's many that we could choose from. We don't need to have them identified immediately. We just need to be able to put the application in saying that we are interested and we do want some funds.
And once we identify, it's too late to get the money, right?
Well, no,
Or
actually.
we did.
We already know, we know that there's quite a few in town that we're already working on that we could definitely use the
Very
funds
good,
for
okay.
to help. Yes.
Thank you for the clarification, Britt. Maybe fourth time's a charm. Looking for council action.
May I ask a question?
Counselor Freely.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a match to this that we're responsible?
No, Brownsfield grants, if there is a match, it's usually 10%, but oftentimes it's just free money. It's very, very competitive. This is why we haven't been successful the last 3 times.
Thank you. I would go ahead and move the approval of the resolution for the city to act as a fiscal agent for the Brownfield community.
Thank you. Counselor Freely moves to approve and supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Baraboo.
Just one point, if this is going to go through the Siri process or not, Brett?
Our Iron Range Brownfields group,
Okay, yeah, that's Siri, right?
no, it's separate, we're separate from Siri.
You're separate from Siri.
We have our own Iron Range Brownsfield group, and it's my understanding there's only 3 cities that are participating this time, us, Hibbing, and Ely.
Yeah, in the past, there've been a lot of grant monies available for this Brownsfield, so I definitely will support this.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 13 is approve the memorandum of understanding with Mesabi Range College.
Yeah, was this, who brought this forward? Who did?
Mattson.
Chief Mattson. She's okay with this?
Yes.
Okay, in my previous employment, we had similar agreements, and we had difficulty getting information. Back then, it was a one-sided thing between the police department and the college, but this memorandum of understanding, or this, seems to be really well developed, and it looks like a mutual cooperation there, so I have no problem with it moving forward. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this the first time an MOU agreement like this, or of its kind, has come forward? Or have we entered into this type of agreement in the past with the college?
No, that we haven't before.
So this is a new,
This is something new, and it has a lot to do with the new reporting requirements for sexual assault, particularly coming from the colleges and universities and the cooperation with the police department. I think in discussions with that through Chief Mattson and the college, to the extent that the law requires, there would be a cooperative agreement in investigating these types of crimes on college campuses.
Yep, and I think that it looks excellent. It's covers a lot, and I'm in favor of it. I just wanted to know if we've ever engaged in an MOU like this in the past, and I think it's encouraging to see our police department work alongside Mesabi Range College. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking for council action?
I'll move the MOU.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the MOU. between the college and the police department regarding the investigative sexual assault and other issues associated with crimes. Is there any further, is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
On page 76, item D, at the very bottom, says the college will provide the PD, and then it says brackets, insert applicable information. Does that need to be adjusted so that we are or aren't applying stuff? I'd ask that that be connected. And then the other item is that the city has already been working with the college in the past several years doing our boot camps, and that where someone from the police department goes and visits with some of our new students. And I do know that the new men's basketball coach is looking at continuing having positive interactions with city staff, both fire department, police department, and other staff. So having a formalized agreement for the technical stuff is just a tangible demonstration of the ongoing partnership that the college has had with the students and with the city.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Britt?
Thank you. Item number 15 is a request to purchase city-owned property adjacent to parcel 90602330, and this is John Sullivan again.
John?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Britt. This request came in very late into the packet, late entry into the packet. The Setterstroms, as you can see on the map, are at 402 11th Street South. And what they've been saying is that they would like the ability to either purchase or lease or whatever, utilize that property to the south of that access road back there for, you can see a few cars that are parked back there now, to either purchase that property or lease it so they can put a carport or a garage or whatnot. The city owns where it says 500 10th Street South. That's a whole right-of-way that kind of runs from northwest to southeast through there. That is all owned by the city. It's former right-of-way. And, you know, from a planning standpoint, from a utility standpoint, I guess I haven't really thought about this. I haven't done a lot of work on it yet. It's a recent request, and we would have to consider what the other properties there would want as well, and not just look at one property. As it moves to the east, if you look over to the east, you can see that there's other properties, and they have properties to the south of that access road, and but there really aren't a lot of structures or anything built over there. It's just mostly cars are parked. So I did invite the property owner to come and, you know, make his case, and I told him to send me a sketch of what he wanted to do, and he didn't do that. He's out of town. So he couldn't make it. So I need to look at this a little bit more. I don't have a real concrete plan. I don't have any way to advise you. I just, I've been called by this gentleman in the last couple of weeks, and it was put in. So I can do some more homework on it, and we can just go from there. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, you don't need any council action. You just information at this point in time. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, John, if I'm understanding, there's kind of an alley that curves behind there, and it, as the alley, I guess at the beginning, it extends the property quite extensively. So are we talking beyond the alley for purchase? And then maybe when you do that, could you just come back and let us know? I mean, that is city-owned property, is it not? Or is that on the railroad trail, that railroad grade that goes through there, or?
City-owned property, yes.
Okay.
And I think they just want to utilize it, whether they lease it, they buy it, they use it. One thing to keep into consideration is if you look on the actual aerial in your packet, just south of where the blue lines outlining the Setterquist property is, that's, if you look in that alleyway there, you can see it's in pretty tough shape. You can see the dark area there, and that's been a cause of concern. So there's kind of a dual thing here. I think from a public works standpoint, we need to decide, you know, what the future is of the use of that road, and that could be a street and alley discussion as well, because I know the property owners over there, not just the Setterquist, but they're having some difficulties crossing back and forth through that road right now as the current shape it's in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Counselor Paulson?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Counselor Johnson?
Mayor. It is interesting how all of the houses to the east have that property. There's that arc with them all portioned off, and then we get to approximately 334 11th Street South, and it stops because of the old railroad grade. But I'm on the county land explorer, and there's a big swath called 510th Street that goes all the way down and back. And it's probably old railroad grade, but it may be, maybe this should be referred to buildings and grounds or street and alley or both. And maybe there's some long-term potential for that, or if there's not, let's determine that so we can't. So I would move this back to, I guess, buildings and grounds.
Probably street and alley, actually, because I need to pull out the plans for the Tennis for All parking lot. If you remember, street and alley had discussed a couple years ago about using that as an access point to get to the Tennis for All to create a new parking lot. So probably back to street and alley, and we can pull up all those old plans as well.
Okay, then I'll move to refer to street and alley committee.
Counselor Johnson moves to
Support.
move this to the Street and Alley Committee. When John Sullivan is ready to present, supported by Counselor Freelieb, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And thank you very much, John McNamara from Wold, for sitting through all this. We appreciate it. Item number 16 was an added item discussion regarding the construction manager at risk proposals for the Virginia Public Safety Center.
Okay, thank you. And is this something we would move to closed session about, or do we keep this open?
Mayor, unless there's a specific, if the focus of the conversation is just talking about selection, then we would keep it open. If there's any concern about issues with the process or anything like that, then there's a potential that we could close it to address those specific issues. But I think at this point, it would be presumed open.
Thank you very much. Mr. McNamara, again, once again, apologize for the long delay. Thanks for coming up here, and welcome to the City Council Committee, the whole meeting.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Happy to be here. So today, I think we just want to have an open conversation with Council as to the interviews with the construction manager at risk that happened last week, and hopefully get some consensus with Council as to moving forward into the contract negotiation phase. So just to recap, there were 5 proposals that were submitted by construction managers, some that we're familiar with, some that are a little bit further afield. That came and presented to the council last week. A couple of considerations to look at is the selection criteria that were put forward and some of the questions that were supposed to be directly addressed at that interview. Some, I think, answered those better than others, but it really is something that it would be good to engage in a conversation with council as to folks that were there at the interview, how they align with what council is looking for as far as their communication plan, how they'll help the design team with budgets and with the value engineering components of it, and some of that communication piece that we know is pretty important to the city as we move forward, and how all of the teams address that in the interview and in their proposal, I think would be a good way to start the conversation around who might be a good fit for the city. Certainly, we've worked with many of them, not all of them, but if there are some specific questions that we can answer, we can certainly help with some of that. So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. McNamara. I guess I'll start. Reviewing the proposals ahead of time, and I took the liberty of really trying to study them as much as I could to try to understand them as much as I could based upon those proposals, and then sitting in on the interview, listening to each individual proposal and how they answer the questions and how they viewed the construction manager at risk responsibilities as opposed to doing personal work personally with that regard. And so looking at those, and then after looking at proposals, coming back here to the City Council chambers over the weekend and taking a look at these proposals once again and trying to rank them in what I, from my perspective, to be the people the management team that I would prefer to have. I have made a personal selection of who I think was number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So with that being said, I'll go for the rest of the council to ask you any questions. I think I would have, I want to put you on the spot to make a recommend one or the other. I think that's for us to decide. And the question we asked at those interviews was, have you worked with Wold architects in the past, and what is your relationships with them? And I find the answers to be the ones who did work with you to be rather eye-opening with respect to understanding how they work and how they spoke about the relationship working with you. So I thought that was very impressive, and I need to understand that when we do communication as part of that one question, there was a working relationship involved in that. So that was really what tipped the scales for me as to what my recommendation would be. So thank you. Anybody else? Any questions for Mr. McNamara, Councilor Baraboo, and then over to Councilor Friedli.
Mayor, I've looked over those, all those issues also myself. I've deduced it down to 2 individual companies, if I may say that, and I've thrown out 3. So I'm in the same boat you are.
Right? Thank you.
And I've gone down to 2.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Friedli?
I also have kind of decided on 2 finalists, and one of which, if I recall, had already been involved in 140 some odd projects with Wold, which could be a blessing or a curse. I don't know exactly what the relationship was through the course of all those projects, but I think that kind of relationship is going to be critical to be able to blend that and make this work. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, is the company that had the most longstanding, extensive relationship with Wold in other projects over the course of time.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's important as well to note. If you're working with somebody 146 times, there has to be some kind of a professional relationship there to accomplish the successes in the projects themselves. Councilor Johnson.
So I'll just say that I think Kraus Anderson is the right answer. This is all public record. The meeting was open. The thing that, for me, that sold it with Kraus Anderson is we're going to be working with the same team that we're working with right now. And I think, as has been demonstrated by our Parks and Rec Director, Kraus Anderson being present, them listing the people who are going to be here, we don't have to build any of those relationships. Though the Kraus Anderson already knows our local contractors, they know us, they know what our expectation is. We, as a council, don't have to retrain a new team that we want to be talked to every other week. We want to have emails regularly, all of that stuff. I think after sitting and listening, and that their original pre-construction service, if they are awarded the bid, that goes away. That's $35,000 that we can spend on something that the firefighters and the police officers want and don't need. So I think we should move forward with Kraus Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Is that a motion moving forward?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And sitting through the process and learning a little bit more, I've been on the design team for the new facility that's currently being worked on. My first question to all of them, which I was able to do with the first one, was the effect of change orders. And it was interesting to hear the differences and how, as a counselor, when we set a budget, I try to watch those change orders and hold people accountable when they give us a bid or a quote on a price, and it comes back months later that we made a mistake, and those mistakes add up. And you get to the end of the project, and all of a sudden you have no money. So to me, holding everybody accountable for change orders and sticking to that price is very important. for our taxpayers. So it was an interesting process to go through. So I thank you for coming up today.
Okay, thank you. For me, I think also reviewing the different concepts, and I agree with Councilor Johnson. I believe my first choice was Carl Sanderson. It wasn't in the beginning. I want to listen to all the presenters, but looking at the costs of the figures moving forward, each one has a different dynamic on what their costs are associated with that, but they're all pretty close. But I think that looking at the services that have been provided, and it's not something that you want to go, with the same team just because you've worked with them in the past, but I think really Cross Anderson has stood out in that regard. I think if there was another company that really stood out above and beyond that, the second, my second choice was the McGough team. I think they were very good as well. But I think looking at the overall perspective, what the costs are, having the construction manager at site through the whole time, having the project manager on site the whole time, living up here in an apartment, spending that kind of time in there, building that into their proposal, as opposed to others didn't have that built in their proposal. So that is advantageous to me. So there's a lot of things in that regard. And I think based on my experience in the past, working with places where there are change orders, and you can't, there's going to be change orders, unforeseen circumstances, but it's how you handle those change orders, which means a lot. And taking responsibility for the change orders and recognizing the difference between a change order by the owner, a change order by the subcontractor, or a change order by the circumstances for what the site is, an unforeseen circumstance, which causes change orders in will. But it's how you handle those change orders effectively and communicate those change orders efficiently and reduce them as much as you can. And I think in our periods with Klaus Anderson, we've experienced that. So I'm ready to move forward with a recommendation, and my first choice is Klaus Anderson. So anybody else? Councilor Freely?
You concur?
They are a team that we have done this project well with in the past.
Okay.
I would go ahead and move that we contract with Carl Sanderson for the public safety building.
Okay, Councilor Freely moves to approve or move forward with the discussion for the, well, what's the proper term? What would be the proper term in the motion? The
Construction manager at risk.
or to hire Carl Sanderson as a construction manager at risk for the public safety building project. Thank you. That's the motion. Is there support? Support. Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion?
That was my first choice too, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That was a long wait. So anything for...
It's worth being here if there was questions, Mayor.
Anything for us, Mr. McNamara?
Yes, that's it.
That's it?
I look forward to seeing everybody on our up and coming tours, and we will be in front of council with some design ideas soon thereafter. So again, thanks for having me today.
Thank you. I'm just going to make one request as we tour. I don't know who's sponsoring the tour or who's recommending the tour, going back and forth, but thank you for that. I just want to say, for my personal perspective, that we're having box lunches, I think, moving forward, but coming back, I would like to make one short 5-minute stop in Hinckley for a personal reason. So thank you. Is there anything else before the council, before we adjourn? Two things. First, Pam, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Pam.
Thank you. Just a side note on the bus, or the meeting for the design, we had selected the 27th. I sent an email out. I've only heard from Councilor Johnson. So on a time that works, 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or?
What's this for?
Design
Oh,
meeting
the design
with-
table. Yeah, I thought you were
with
talking about the bus
architects.
tour.
No,
Yep.
no.
Okay. Is Wednesday work for everybody?
The 27th.
The 27th?
You don't want everybody there, just your small design team again?
No, this would
no.
be for everybody. This is the Public Safety Center.
It's a Wednesday, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's good for me.
Wednesday, what time?
Whatever time works. 8:30?
Well, I'd like to get it over in the morning if I can, but if you have travel plans, we could do it in the afternoon.
So are we, Mayor and Council, are we talking about the follow-up design meeting after we go on the tours?
Yes.
I had suggested Thursday, but that doesn't work?
Thursday works. Does Thursday work for everybody here? Works for me.
8th?
What time?
I would be happy to be here at whatever time, seeing as I picked the date. So if it needs to be early to accommodate schedules, I'll be here.
Thursday works for me, Mayor.
Thursday, the 27th, does that work for everyone? And I know
28th?
on Thursday, the 28th. My schedule is clear, but those of you who have businesses and families, what would be a time that would be amenable?
Anything after school drop-off at 8 o'clock is fine that Thursday.
Okay, would it be prudent to us just to stay at 9 o'clock in the morning? Is that possible? That work for everybody? Britt?
Works for me. Counselor Beyondich is the one that I know that we try to.
Councilor Beyondich, would you prefer what time?
8 o'clock.
is
Okay,
perfect.
well, is 8 o'clock okay? Okay.
It needs to be at 8 o'clock, we'll make that happen.
Okay, you might have to come up the night before.
Yes.
Okay,
If
so,
needed, we'll come up the night before.
okay, so we're looking for a motion to set that meeting for the design after the tours to Thursday, the 28th of October at 8 a.m.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Counselor Johnson, I think, has something, and then over to Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Johnson.
Is that okay? Mayor, it's been processing, and I know this has come up before, but I would like to make a motion to ask the Parks and Rec Commission to consider establishing hours for our parks to allow for enforcement of folks that shouldn't be there or to cut down on vandalism. So I
Okay,
would
motion.
move to direct Brian to bring that to the Parks and Rec Commission for recommendations.
A motion by Counselor Johnson to direct our Park and Rec Director Brian Silber to address the issue of park hours at the Alcott Park or all parks? At all parks, and confer with the Park and Rec Commission in that regard for a recommendation. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Well, we've got stuff on record that our parks are going to be open 24 hours a day, so we'll have to address that issue if we want to change hours. And my personal opinion, I don't want to, because there are people that do stuff real early in the morning and they do stuff later at night for walking, etc. So I just don't want to see the 24 hours changed. It should be directed to our police department to run runs through there more often than they do. That's my recommendation. I don't care about the hours.
Well, I think that we're just directing Park and Rec Director to discuss that, to come up with a recommendation for some potential hours for us to consider moving forward. We don't have to accept that recommendation, but the motion is to move forward with that. I do know from the previous, we did open up for 24 hours. There's a big concern. The public wanted it open 24 hours. They didn't want the gate closed. There was issues about Park and Rec getting 4 hours of overtime in exchange to come and open and closing the gates in the morning for the police spread to come in there. And I took the liberty, now not for 2021, but back in 2020, I asked the police chief, give me a record of all the calls for service that you have and the problems that you had at the park, and there were only 2. So, but that was the direction for us to move forward with, and so that's been moved and supported to have staff. We're just a recommendation to come back from Park and Rec to move forward with that, right? So thank you, Counselor Johnson and Counselor Bearable. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Did you have something, Counselor Beyondich?
I did. I know in the very beginning, we talked about inviting the public safety, the Friends of Public Safety. Were they invited to go on that tour?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They have been signing up also.
Thank you.
Pam, I will not be on that tour to the cities because I've got a doctor's appointment I have to keep for my stuff that's going on, and I can't cancel that. So I will not be going on that tour.
Okay, so thank you. Anything else, Counselor Beyondich?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay.
I won't be on the tour either because you're going to be stopping at White Castle.
I'll double bag it. Okay, so anything else to come before the council committee of the whole meeting today? Britt, anything else? Brian, anything? John, anything else? Pam? Okay, Mr. McNamara? Brian? Okay, nothing else to come before the committee of the whole meeting. We'll stand adjourned. It's 12:12 p.m. Thank you, everybody. It was a very productive meeting. Have a good day. We stand adjourned.